Carolina Klein of Germany. She represents, as you can see, that familiar red strip of Bayer Leverkusen, the 29-year-old. She is a 6,000 point heptathlete, but she's focused more on the long jump in recent times. Libby Buder of TSG Bergedorf. She's a 6:47 jumper at her best, a 21-year-old, a real up-and-coming athlete. Finja Kuchling of Eintracht Frankfurt. She has a best of 6:51 in the long jump. Just 20 years old. And she's also a good hurdler, 13.9 for the 100-meter hurdles. Here is Samira Attemeyer of Germany. 6:60 is her best for the long jump. The 21-year-old represents the OSC Dortmund club. Now this is an athlete a lot of people will be keen to see back in action this evening. Putting the injury problems of last year firmly behind her, this is Laura Raquel Müller, the 21-year-old who competes for Unterländer LG. She is the longest jumper in this field, 6:81 her best, which she did indoors last year. She jumped 6:73 outdoors. We'll talk plenty more about Müller as time goes on. This is Kim Vaska, one of the para-athletes who's competing. She competes in the T47 category, which is for single arm impairments. And she was a Paralympian last year in the shot put and indeed the 100 meters and 200 meters. She has a personal best of 5:16 for the long jump. We saw Elena Kratter being introduced there. She is a 5:28 athlete, competes in the parasport in the T6 category. Indeed, another para-athlete rounding out the field, a very promising teenage athlete with a personal best of 5:28, Jule Ross. She competes also like Vaska. She competes in the T47 category, single arm impairments, and Ross was a Paralympian in Paris last year in 4 events: the 100 meters, 200 meters, 400 meters, and indeed the long jump. That is your 9-woman field for the first event that will be screened live on European Athletics Stream at Tage der Überflieger. So there will be 4 elite events, as I mentioned, this evening. The first of them at 6 p.m. local time will be the women's long jump. The opening ceremony will be coming up officially just before 7 p.m. and then the women's pole vaulters will be taken to the runway at 7:10 p.m. shortly followed by the men's high jumpers at 7:25, and then the last, certainly not least, the men's long jumpers at 7:35 Central European time. So you see we have this elevated runway built, and this is Eni Dangelmeyer of Germany powering down the runway. Hit the board well, but it may have been a foul. Very close to that board.
Blöde rote Lampe da am Absprung, also unglücklicher Versuch, übergetreten da am Brett. Eni Dangelmeyer im ersten Durchgang.
Indeed did look like a foul, but it was a good length of jump. She has a best of 6:26, as you can see, good 3 or 4 inches over, maybe 10 centimeters or so, but she will have a few attempts to get that right. This is Carolina Klein of Germany, the 29-year-old, and they're turning up the music. Germans certainly know their house and techno music. And off she goes down the runway, Carolina Klein. She has a best of 6:42, so she'll be looking to get around that 6 meter mark here to open the competition, and it looks to be just that, if indeed that is a valid attempt, and it is being measured. So she gets the green light, the green flag, and she will be first on the board at Tage der Überflieger. Great elevation off the board there. Tage der Überflieger translates as Day of the High Flyers, and you can see Carolina Klein was certainly flying high there off that board, as she is credited with 6 6:19 for her opening effort. That is a strong opening effort from her. She has a season's best of 6:28, and it's into a slight headwind as well. This is Libby Buder of Germany, just 21 years old. She is just under 5,500 points in the heptathlon as well. But she's a very good long jumper. That's her best event in the multis. 6:47 her best. And as you can see, why there, because she has soared well beyond 6 meters, but will she get a green flag? It looks like. I don't think that's being measured. I think that is a foul to open her competition. As you can see, well over that board there, probably a good 6 or 7 centimeters over. But Libby Buder will have a few more attempts to get that right. This is Finja Kochling of Germany, 20-year-old, representing the Eintracht Frankfurt club. She has a best of 6:51, which she set just 3 weeks ago in Wiesbaden. Great height, but I think that trail leg, or the left leg, just came down a little bit earlier than she would have liked as she was trying to hitch kick it through there. Great speed on the runway. As you can see there, where that left foot planted was a lot further back than where that right foot planted. Perhaps just didn't quite get the elevation she needed to complete that movement. But Finja Kochling is on the board with a 6:09. As you can see there, 0.1 the wind, so it is practically still conditions. Ideal conditions really for these athletes, but that may change later on. Hopefully it won't be too bad, but there is a bit of a storm forecast to blow through Essen this evening. We'll see how that affects the athletes in the later competitions. This is Samira Attermeier. Huge height off the board, but it's not at all what she wanted there. She has a best of 6:60. 6:51 indoors this year. Attermeier, the 21-year-old, representing Dortmund. BC, she was way behind the board. That is a common occurrence. You can see there that must be 40 or 50 centimeters, and it's no surprise she came down short of 6 meters there, because something obviously amiss with her run up. 5:55, and she probably left about a half a meter on the runway. But Attermeier will be, I'm sure, making the necessary adjustments. Now this is Laura Raquel Müller, who was an Olympian in Paris last year. Just 21 years old, and a really, really exciting talent is Müller. European under-20 bronze medalist back in 2023. She jumped a PB in the final there of 6:51. She's since increased that to 6:81. Let's see how she can start here. That looks to be around the 6 meter mark. And indeed it is being measured, so green light for Müller. She had a gymnastics and dance background, as so many field eventers tend to do. Gymnastics serves as such a great grounding for so many field eventers. And Müller, who's from Werenberg, Oringen, is in third place with that effort. 6:04 to start her competition. Now Kim Vaske, the first of the para athletes we'll see take to the runway. The 20-year-old representing Bayer Leverkusen. She has a best of 5:16. And as I mentioned, she was competed in 4 different events at the Paralympics in Paris last year. That looks to be slightly shy of 5 meters, but it is a red flag for Vaske. So certainly not what Vaske wanted to start the competition. Oh, it is very marginal though, so it is only the slightest adjustment that will be needed by Vaske in the rounds to come. But it is indeed a foul to start her competition. Now this is Elina Krattler. She is a single leg amputee, competes in the T63 category. And as you see there, she knows that was a foul, so she walks back behind her landing mark at the side of the pit, and that will be one to forget for her, but she will have more attempts. She's a 5:28 jumper at her best, is Krattler. As we saw, well over the board there. And another athlete in that familiar red strip of Bayer Leverkusen. It is Jule Ross, who, like Crater, has a best of 5:28, although she does compete in a different category, of course, in parasport. Russ is a T47 athlete, which is for single arm impairments, and as I mentioned, she competed in 4 events at the Paralympics last year: 100, 200, 400, and indeed the long jump. 11th in the long jump in Paris. Best result of track came in the 400 meters, where she was 8th. And no doubt she will be putting all that track speed to good use down this runway here for her first attempt. Looks good on the board. Maybe not the landing she would have wanted. I think it's a bit shy of 5 meters, but it is being measured. It is very tricky for these athletes, of course, getting that mark right. So often it ends in disaster for long jumpers, but she was pretty good there, within probably 7 or 8 centimeters of that board. 464 for Russ to start the competition. And that is all 8 athletes, or all 9 athletes I should say, who have taken their first attempt. So it's on to round 2, and Inie Dangelmeier, the 21-year-old.
Und wir starten in den zweiten Durchgang mit Ini Dangelmeier vom LAZ Rede und so ein bisschen mehr
representing the Latze Rede club.
sorgt in der Regel auch für ein
And
bisschen
Dangelmeier was 10th at the German Indoor Championships in February. And she's been close to 6 meters already, just 2 days ago in fact, in Duisburg. 5:93 she jumped. And she's back on the runway, she's smiling, she is getting the crowd going. And let's see how close she can get to her outdoor PB, which is 6:18. Her best indoors was done earlier this year in February, 6:26. But mostly she'll want to register a valid attempt here. Dangelmeier, second round. Doesn't look like a valid attempt. I think she's over the board once again. And the red bar flashes up on that measuring panel alongside the pit. And this looks like a foul by a good distance again, but yeah, she was well over that board. But again, it is still May, albeit the last day of May. It's early in the season and a lot of these athletes are still just figuring it out. They may have made some adjustments, either in the off season or between indoors and now to their run-ups. A lot of athletes early in the season might not be running off full approaches, or if they're carrying niggles. So Dangelmeier just having to figure things out, but she will have one more valid attempt to keep herself in the competition. But it's over now to Carolina Klein, who leads the competition with that 6:19 in the first round. Once again generating great speed on the runway, looked close on the board. And that is a very similar distance, certainly looks to be over 6 meters for Klein. 6:42 her best outdoors. That dates all the way back to 2019, however. That looked just about perfect on the board from here, but we'll get a better look in this shot. No, it wasn't perfect. It was just a few centimeters over. And Carolina Klein, no improvement in the second round, but she still leads with 6:19. The multi-eventer, a 6,000 point heptathlete all the way back in 2017, but of course the long jump has had her focus in recent years. And it's on to another strong heptathlete, Libby Buder, who's 5,498 points for the heptathlete, an excellent long jumper. No joy there, however, for Bruder. And that is her second foul. It was very close, but you can see the distance is there. She really is soaring. That is just a centimeter or two for Bruder. That will frustrate her, but her focus in round 3 will just be getting one on the board, keeping herself in this competition, making sure she gets all 6 attempts, because no doubt she looks capable of threatening her PB, which is 6:47. This is Finja Kochling, the 20-year-old representing Eintracht Frankfurt. Great speed once again on the runway. She's behind the board, and that looks over 6 meters. 6:09 was her best in her opening effort in round 1. That puts her in 2nd place. Looks a very similar kind of to that. Kukling is a 651 jumper at her best. See, fantastic height there off the board. We'll be seeing the triple jumpers, men and women, both in action tomorrow. And it is an improvement. 617 for Kukling. Trails Carolina Klein by just 2 centimeters. Now let's see if Samira Attermeyer can improve. She's a 660 jumper at her best. But she will not have been happy with that opening effort of 555, where she was way behind the board. She's much closer to it this time, and she's much closer to 6 meters as well. So a big step forward, quite literally, for Samira Attermeyer, the 21-year-old representing OSC Dortmund. I think she's still behind the board. We'll get a better look here in this replay. Yeah, still leaving probably 15 to 20 centimeters. But she clearly made an adjustment. She's getting closer to the board, and that is a strong jump, 609, given how much distance she left behind her on that board. You can be sure Samira Attermeyer will be featuring, as will this athlete, who will be very hopeful of taking victory this evening. But I'm sure mostly will just be delighted to be back jumping and be back competing. She really struggled with injury last year. The national championships, when the rain fell, she injured her knee. It really did threaten her participation at the Paris Olympics, but she made it there. She wasn't at her very best in Paris. She went out in qualification. Oh, and that one just went wrong. She could see there completely over-rotating Laura Raquel Muller in the air, and indeed it is. That's often a case of when you hit the board wrong. Looked, there was a clear foul there, and I think that was what happened in the air was a result of just where that foot planted. You can see half of her foot on that little elevated platform that is the board. But a lot of German athletics fans and long jumps fans will be delighted to see Laura Raquel Muller back jumping, back healthy, the 21-year-old who represents Unterländer LG, who has a very, very bright future. Now, Kim Vaske, she fouled her first attempt, has a best of 5.16, the Bayer Leverkusen athlete. Let's see if she can get close to that 5 meter mark here. It looks shy of 5 meters, but has it been registered as a valid jump? Indeed it has. So that is certainly progress for Vaske, who finished 15th in the shot put. It's her best event at the Paralympics last year, competing in the F46 and the T47 category on the track. 479 for Vaske, so that is a very good start for her valid jumps, at least, of course, after fouling the first round. And it is another para-athlete on the runway, Elena Krater of Switzerland, the 28-year-old. Good height off the board, but I think it's another foul, and yeah, you can see where she walks out will tell you. You don't even need to see anymore. It's a second foul, unfortunately, for Elena Krater. That was close. That was a lot closer. Wow. It did not look like a foul. Oh, and I think that is a valid jump, but Krater, I think as the judge is explaining, has walked out yet again the side of the pit. And of course the rules dictate that the officials have to measure the mark that is closest to the board. And we saw there yet again, instead of walking out the end of the pit, maybe she thought it was a foul. Maybe she thought she hit that board wrong and just walked out the side of the pit, kind of walked backwards in the pit, I guess, to exit it, rather than walking out the front. But either way, officials will have to measure the point in the sand that is closest to the board, which will mean, assuming that's a valid jump, that Krater will have given away a lot of distance there on what was a good effort. And it's measured at 5.32 for Krater. Now her PB is 5.28.
So, und 5,32 Meter.
So that's a fantastic jump. Didn't actually see where that was being measured from, but Krater walked out the side of the pit, and I'm pretty sure the point where she left was behind the point she landed. So who knows, maybe she's about to smash her PB even more, but as it stands, it's already been a great night for Elena Krater. A lifetime best of 5:32, which puts her in 5th place overall. And leading the 3 women in who are competing in the para fields. Krater, of course, is in a different discipline to this lady, Jule Ross, who is in the T47 category. Now she opened with a foul. Sorry, she opened with 464. And we'll wait to see if that is an improvement on that 464. And indeed it is. It's just come up as 522 for Jule Ross, the German teenager. So 522, that is very close to her lifetime best, which is 528. And we're marching on into round 3. And the pressure is going to be on Annie Dangelmeyer, the 21-year-old German. Just last week in Wenheim, she jumped 6:18. But her personal best, 6:26. Certainly capable of going over 6 meters. And just 2 nights ago, she jumped 5:93. But started with 2 fouls, and we'll be keen to get one on the board here. Enya Dangelmeyer getting the crowd going. There's a great atmosphere in Essen this evening. Good speed on the run. You can see her just chop her stride there, 4 or 5 strides before she hit the board, and I think that was just a response to making sure that was a valid jump. See it here on the replay. You can just see the stride start to shorten right about there. She was just catching the side of that board, and these long jumpers are so well drilled. They know exactly 4 or 5 strides out, whether they're too close or too far away from the board. She looked to be making an adjustment, and she is on the board. Valid attempt, 5:91. That puts her into 5th place, having previously been bringing up the rear, but Enya Dangelmeyer is on the board. Now, Carolina Klein, her 3rd attempt. The 29-year-old is loving life on that runway, and there's a great atmosphere generated by the crowd and the public. It is free access to Kennedy Platz this evening. If anyone indeed is watching from Essen, head on down, support the athletes. Carolina Klein, 3rd attempt. Can she extend her lead at the top of the standings? That is a big jump. It looks to be around the 620 mark yet again, and it is being measured, so it is a valid jump by Carolina Klein, who will again, I suspect, be threatening her season's best, which is 6:28. Still a little bit down on her personal best, it's 42. But that is that is huge. 6:53, I think I heard in German being called out. Sorry, 6:35 it was. But that is a season's best for Carolina Klein. Into a little slight headwind as well. And she has indeed extended her lead over Finja Kuchling. It is now 18 centimeter lead. And let's see what Libby Buder of Germany can produce. Season's best, 6:46. If she can reproduce that here, she'll be going into 1st place. Libby Buder, 3rd attempt. Very close. It's a long one. Is it a valid one? She was very close to that board, and there's no one coming out to measure that. It is a red flag for Libby Buder, which will frustrate her, because that is a 3rd foul from Libby Buder. It's just not quite right. Yeah, just 2 or 3 centimeters, no more in it. And that is huge frustration for Libby Buder. Now back to the lady who, as you can see, is in 2nd place with 6:17. The mark she's chasing is 6:35 to get to the front of Carolina Klein. Finja Kuchling has done that in recent weeks. She's jumped 6:51. Great elevation there. Just goes slightly off to the left, costing herself a few inches, but nothing major to worry about. Finja Kuckling 6.17 in the second round. She has improved it, 6.19. She edges a little bit closer to Carolina Klein with 3 more attempts remaining. Samira Attermeyer will be keen to improve on her second round attempt of 6.09. She's currently sitting in 3rd place. Has a best of 6.51 this season, and she is way behind the board. That is an attempt to forget. Comes down, it will be measured, but it's well shy of 6 meters, and she must have left 15 centimeters or more on the board there. Very good speed on the runway, but you can see she's just way behind the board there. She has made some adjustments, but that must be 30 centimeters she has left there. So never going to be threatening really the 6 meter barrier, or certainly the leading mark of 6.35 when she is that far behind the board. But it is a tricky thing to get right for these athletes, especially still quite early in what could be a very long season, which of course runs into those World Championships, which will run from mid to late September. I know there's even some events going on in late September and October this year. Now, Laura Raquel Muller, 6.04 in the opening round, fouled the second round. What can the young German star do? She has fouled that again. It is a huge jump though. Look where she came down in the sand. Even allowing for the foul, that looks a jump that is well beyond 6.5 meters if she can just get things right on the board. Excellent height there from Muller from Uringen. This is her first competition of 2025, so lots of people will be very keen to see how Laura Raquel Muller returns. And while she's having some issues on the board, which you'd only expect, what's clear is that she is in the form to jump very, very far. Her outdoor PB is 6.73. But back to the runway, because Kim Vaska, who jumped 4.79 in the opening round, or the second round I should say, that looks pretty similar again. Fouled her first attempt, did Vaska. 5.16 is her personal best. She hits the board. Could have been a little closer to it, but not by too much. It's not bad at all there. Even if there is some room for improvement, but Kim Vaska with 4.72, so it's no improvement for Vaska, the German athlete, the 20-year-old, but she stays in the competition. 3 more attempts to come. Now this is Elena Kratter. Great height there from Kratter, 5.32, as I mentioned, the personal best in that second round. And you can just see there where, yeah, she's a lot more careful this time. I think she maybe just about got away with it last time. That is a foul, I think. Sorry, it's not a foul. So that will be measured. But Kratter being a lot more careful about just where she exited the pit there. 5.22. And to our third para-athlete, second para-athlete who's competing in the T47 category for single arm impairments. From Germany, the teenager Jule Russ. 5.28 her best. Very close to that already though, the Bayer Leverkusen athlete. 5.22 in round 2. Currently has her in 7th place. Very close to the board there, and it looks to be very close to 5 meters. Don't think it's going to improve upon her, and it is a red flag.
Damit geht's jetzt in den 4. Durchgang.
So it is a 3rd round foul for Jule Russ, and that does complete round 3.
6,35. Dann Finja Köchling 6,19 und Samira Attermeier 6,09.
There are the current standings.
Athletin im Moment
Carolina Klein leading the way.
Das Ganze haben wir auch noch mal
6:35. Finja Kuckling in second and Samira Attermeier in third. But do not be surprised if Raquel Muller, who's currently in 4th place in her opening competition of the season, only 1 of 3 valid jumps with 6:04. But if Muller can hit the board correctly, she will soar, I have no doubt, up the standings. Probably to the head of the standings, because the marks she has put down that are fouls look like very, very big jumps indeed from the 21-year-old German. No joy there for Libby Buder. 3 fouls for her.
Ja, ein paar neue haben wir gewonnen, das ist schon mal ganz gut. Wir nehmen den Gegentest. Wer von euch gehört zu den erfahrenen Leuten, die Leichtathletik schon mal live gesehen haben? Das will ich gerne hören.
So they'll just be reshuffling the order now that we're at the halfway mark.
Versuchen wir mal das Ganze noch zusammenzubringen. Wer von euch hat Bock im Hauptprogramm gleich noch richtig
And first up will be Samira Attermeier.
Oh, das war aber eine totale Enttäuschung. Ich habe gerade das Gefühl gehabt, dass ich irgendwie bei den Bundesjugendspielen der Johann Peter Hebelschule in Essen Überruhr bin.
No, indeed, it looks like it will be Jule Ross who will be first, or maybe they're just giving them a few moments to just make those adjustments with their marks. And we saw Ross have some issues on the board. We just saw her edging that an inch or two to the left. As you can see, the flags there in the background do represent the nationalities that will be represented at the Tage der Überflieger. Athletes from all around the world, and probably about half the competing athletes overall are Germans. Country, of course, which is so strong across the field events. 4 different disciplines being contested across this 2-day event: the long jump, the triple jump, the pole vault, and indeed the high jump. The day of the high flyers, Tage der Überflieger. And just to mark your card about when we will have the other events coming up, about 20 minutes time we'll have the official opening ceremony, and then at 7:10 p.m. local time, that's Central European time, will be the women's pole vault. At 7:25 the men's high jump, and at 7:35 the men's long jump. They will be running concurrently. That will take us up to around about 9 p.m. or so, just after 9 p.m. perhaps. Now we're into the 4th round, and thankfully Libby Buder has a chance. She has 3 chances, in fact, to get on the board here. She has put in some big jumps, but they haven't been valid jumps. 3 fouls so far. As I mentioned, just last weekend in Ettlingen, she jumped 6:46. She jumped to 6:43 a couple of weeks before that in Berlin, so she's more than capable of a 6.5 meter jump this evening if she can get it right on that board. That looks like it could be a foul again. It is very close if it's not a foul. And I think that is unfortunately a 4th consecutive foul. Indeed it is for Libby Buder. The plus side is that she is certainly producing long jumps, as you can see there. That is in and around the 6.5 meter mark. Certainly looks to be around 6:40 if she can just hit that board right. She has been over it on all 4 of her attempts. She will have made an adjustment before that one, but it's not quite enough of an adjustment. Now, Kim Vaska will be going in reverse order, of course, through the latter part of this competition. 4:79 is Vaska's best this evening. That looks like it could be a foul as well, I think, unfortunately for Vaska. 5:16 her best, and that will be no improvement. And indeed it is one of the elevated long jump runways that the athletes are using, and you can actually see there in that shot how it compresses the whole track when you just plant that full force on takeoff. Some people of course think it's unfair and provides an advantage when people set records, things like that, on runways like that there kind of is a mild trampoline effect, or perhaps more like a gymnastics floor. We certainly saw in Rome at the Europeans last year how there were a number of huge jumps in the long jump. This is Ulyss. Looks to be close to 5 meters again from Russ, but it is unfortunately a foul. 5:22 her best. She stays in 7th place at the moment.
Mit dem Bayerkreuz auf der Brust für Bayer Leverkusen unterwegs. Studiert Medizintechnik.
Just maybe 5-6 centimeters there over the board for Russ, the Bayer Leverkusen athlete. Next up, it is Elena Krater, another of the para athletes. Just get back in time to see her 4th attempt. 5:32 her best in round 2. See if that is an improvement. It's been measured, but I don't think that's going to be an improvement for the 28-year-old Swiss jumper. So, as you heard the commentator, 5 Meter 11. 5 meters 11 centimeters. Now it's back to Enya Dangelmeyer. 2 fouls to open her competition. She did get on the board in the 3rd round with that little late jump adjustment. 5:91 her best. She sits in 5th place, but no doubt Enya Dangelmeyer is capable of better than that. Just last week in Wenheim she jumped 6:18. She is a 6:26 jumper at her best. That was indoors in Leverkusen earlier this year. Let's see if Dangelmeyer can produce better here. That thumping tune from Macklemore in the background. Off she sets down the runway. Enya Dangelmeyer, very low trajectory there through the air. And it's being measured, but I don't think that I'm not sure if that's an improvement on her best so far. 5:91 for Dangelmeyer. She was well behind the board there. And it looks to be around the 5:70 mark, I suspect. But I can see probably 15 centimeters left behind on the board. So certainly room for improvement, and indeed it's 5:72 for Dangelmeyer. She stays in 5th place. Next up, from Uerdingen, one of the rising stars of German athletics, Laura Raquel Müller, just 21 years old, an Olympian last year, gets the crowd going. She's currently in 4th place with that one valid opening attempt, 6:04. 2 fouls to follow that, but we saw that there were big jumps. If she can just get it right here in round 4. That looks better on the board. It's not quite as good of a jump though, but it looks like it will be an improvement for Laura Raquel Müller, and I think it will move her up in the standings. 6:04 her best. She was well behind the board there. You can see the speed and power there on the runway. She just lowers the center of gravity in that second last stride, which kind of has that elastic band effect, helping to propel her upwards once she does hit the board. And it is an improvement. 6:16 for Laura Raquel Müller. That moves her up to 3rd place, with Finja Kuckling and Carolina Klein still just edging it up front. And that means that Samira Attermeyer is demoted from 3rd to 4th. 2nd round effort of 6:09. Her best so far, but Attermeyer, as I mentioned, 6:51 indoors this year. Had a few issues on the board. That looks better, if indeed it is a valid jump, and I think it is. I think Attermeyer has got that one spot on the board, and it looked like a very well executed jump as well from the 21-year-old from Dortmund. As you can see, yeah, that looks, from the far away angle anyway, looks pretty good on the board. just about perfect there from Attermeyer, who had a few issues being behind the board in her opening attempts. And let's see what that has rewarded with her. And it's a huge reward for Attermeyer into the lead towards the end of the fourth round. Samira Attermeyer, 5:38, her effort in the fourth round. Now, can Finja Kuchling, who has a best of 6:19, she is currently sitting in third. Let's see if Finja can strike back. She has a best of 6:51, set just a few weeks ago. She needs to get it right on the board here. Might be a foul. The legs just come down a little bit early there as well. That is going to be raked away. No measurement for Kuchling. But that is her first foul of the competition, so perhaps just taking a few more chances there. You can see the speed she generates. Brilliant. And indeed the elevation, but just perhaps over-rotating a little bit there in the air. Perhaps a product of just how much of her foot was on that elevated platform. And she kind of almost landed with her body tilted a bit forward, which is not the way you want to be as a long jumper. So no joy there for Finja Kuchling, who stays in place. And this woman, Carolina Klein, is currently in second. She's just lost her lead to Samira Attermeyer. She needs 3 more centimeters to get it back. That's not going to be enough for Klein, unfortunately. It will be a valid effort. It will be measured. But 6:35 in the third round. That does not look like an improvement for the Bayer Leverkusen athlete. It is still another good jump. It is certainly beyond 6 meters and absolutely perfect on the board there. You can see that camera on the other side just having a hawk-eyed look to see if it was a foul. But it is no improvement, unfortunately, for Carolina Klein. And that brings us to the end of round 4. So onwards to round 5, and now can Libby Buder get one on the board here? 4 fouls to start the competition, but we do know that she's been producing big jumps. If she can just get it right on that board. As I mentioned last weekend, very close to her personal best in Ettlingen, 6:46. So she's capable of winning this tonight, but only if she gets things right. And that is very close to a foul again. Unfortunately, it is a 5th consecutive foul for Libby Buder. She is certainly going for it. She is throwing her chips in the middle.
Die in Ettlingen fast persönliche Bestleistung gesprungen ist nach dieser Saison schon.
But not quite there, unfortunately. A 5th foul in a row for Libby Buder. But she will have one final chance to make amends. Now, Kim Vaske, 4:79 her best. She is in 8th place overall. Let's see if she can get that right. That looks good on the board. It's going to be very close to what she's produced in the earlier rounds, 4:79 and 4:72. The 20-year-old representing Bayer Leverkusen, the absolute powerhouse club that it is, Bayer Leverkusen. As you can see, they're very, very good on the board from Vaske. Is it an improvement? Not quite, 4:75, but great consistency there. 3 jumps in 4:70s for Vaske. She has been beyond 5 meters, of course, at her best, but not quite yet this evening. With that, it's the turn of Jule Ross, the German teenager. 5:22 her best, very close to her personal best of 5:28. Let's see if the youngster can eke out a few more centimeters and move up from her current spot of 7th place. She needs a 10 centimeter improvement to catch Elena Krater. That is close. That looks again in the low 5 meter range, but I think it might not be an improvement on that 5:22.
So, 5:21, 1 Zentimeter.
Pretty good on the board though. You can't ask for much more than that from Jule Russ. But, oh, that is heartbreaking. 1 centimeter shy of her earlier effort, but a great, consistent, solid effort there in round 5 from Jule Russ. She stays in 7th place overall. Now, Elena Krater, who's got that personal best already this evening, generating great speed there on the runway. Great elevation. Jumping off that prosthetic, and you can see there as she steps out of the pit. She obviously just prefers a way to get down as an amputee. It's very conscious of those things as well. How she steps down. Prefers exiting from the side of the pit rather than the front of it. But she certainly didn't give away any distance there as she stepped out of the pit. And very, very good on the board there as well from Elena Krater, the Swiss athlete. The one non-German athlete in the field, 5:23. It's not an improvement, but it is another very strong, consistent effort from the 28-year-old. Now, in round 5, it is the turn of Enya Dangelmeier. She is currently in 5th position with that 3rd round effort of 5:91. But Dangelmeier is, of course, a 6:26 jumper earlier on this year. And just last weekend, 6:18. And she could get herself a podium position this evening if she can get back towards that sort of season's best category and what she jumped last weekend, or indeed indoors earlier on this year in Leverkusen, 6:26. You see, she's great body language on the runway, really just smile, taking in the atmosphere, trying to use that energy to her advantage. Soak it up. She hits the board there. That is a good effort. Is it a valid effort? That is the question. It is being measured. Yes, it is. So, Enya Dangelmeier. Perfect on the board there from Dangelmeier, the 21-year-old, who really seems to have found her flow this evening. 6:18. It is a big improvement for Dangelmeier. 5:91 her best previously. It moves her up to 4th position, and it demotes this woman, Laura Raquel Muller, to 5th. So just 2 valid attempts so far from 4 for Laura Raquel Muller in her first competition since the Paris Olympics last year. She went out in qualification in Paris. She jumped 6:40 there, but she had some awful knee injuries issues through last summer. Her Olympic participation was in major doubt at one point after the German Championships, but she got there. She jumped well, but she had to address that knee issue in the off season, and this is missed the indoor season, and now she's back. Laura Raquel Muller, what can she produce here in round 5? That looks better on the board, and that is a big jump. I think it's the biggest jump we've seen this evening, and it's a valid one, crucially, for Muller. Now 6:38 is the mark that she is looking to surpass. The lead currently being held by Samira Attermeier. We did say if Muller gets the board right, and that is pretty much right. Not leaving too much distance there at all. 6:37, it's so close. 1 centimeter behind Muller at the moment. So Attermeier clings on. And a little smile there from Attermeier, I think, when she saw the 6:37 flash up, because 3 women are now clustered together at the front with just 3 centimeters separating them. Samira Attermeier leads the way, 6:38. Can she extend that advantage, which is now just 1 centimeter over the field? Good on the board there from Attermeier, but I don't think that's an improvement. I think it's around the 6:15 mark. But don't trust me, trust the officials. Samira Attermeier, 6:38, her best in round 4, but yeah, 6:16 there for Attermeier. It is no improvement for her, but she won't mind. She is still leading the way at Tage der Überflieger, the 21-year-old Dortmund athlete. This is an athlete, though, who could certainly threaten for victory here this evening if she can just get it right on the runway and on the board. the 20-year-old representing Eintracht Frankfurt. 6:51 is Finja Kuchling's personal best just a few weeks ago in Wiesbaden. It's also a 13.9 100-meter hurdler. That is very good speed, and you see that here on the runway, but it's just about controlling and harnessing that speed into her jump. That looks good on the board, but again, her landing just, I think, not quite what she wanted there. See those feet just dropping down a fraction earlier than she probably would have liked. But she looked to hit the board very well there. See that leg shoot out in front of her. That certainly looked like a better jump technically than what she produced before. 6:19 her previous best. 6:07 though, no improvement for Kuchling. She stays down in 4th place. She needs 6:35 to make the top 3. And as for Carolina Klein, our early leader, she is now down in 3rd place, having been overtaken in rounds 4 and 5 by Attermeyer and Muller, but she only trails by a few centimeters. 6:37 would get her up to 2nd. 6:38 would get her back to the front. 6:35 her current best. Carolina Klein, great speed, but I think that's a foul. Looked to be over the board, and indeed the man with the measuring stick stays firmly seated, and the two lads with the rakes come out to sweep that mark away, and that will bring an end to round 5, and we'll soon be moving on to the 6th and final round in what's been a riveting women's long jump competition. We hoped, of course, maybe we'd see something beyond the 6:50 mark. Plenty of athletes in here capable of that, but it is early in the season. And what we're seeing instead is a very strong, solid, close competition. And now the pressure has been on Libby Buder throughout, the 21-year-old representing TSG Bergedorf. She is one of those who's capable of 6.5 meters at her best, but 5 fouls in a row. Let's see if she can get it right here. I think that's another foul, unfortunately. And indeed it is. So that is deeply frustrating for Libby Buder. I'm sure he's been making adjustments to that mark, and you see the length of that jump as well. That's what will frustrate her so much, because that could easily be a personal best, but again, 5 or 6 meters over that board. So frustrating for Buder. But she's young, she's 21 years old, and it's still very early in the season. She jumped 6:43 and 6:46 in recent weeks, and looks to be very much have produced similar jumps there, but none of them unfortunately were valid this evening. So Kim Vaske, as we move through this 6th and final round, the Bayer Leverkusen athlete, currently down in 8th place. That looks good on the board, but I don't think that's going to be an improvement. 4:79 her best so far for Vaske. It is a valid attempt, however, for the Vaske, the 20-year-old representing Bayer Leverkusen, but probably 10 or 12 centimeters left behind there. But not bad at all on the board. It's very close, and as you see, it's a very consistent series there amongst her 4 valid attempts for Kim Vaske. But the best of them will be 4:79, and she will finish in 8th place. And Vaske, I'm sure, will be... There is a competition within a competition here, because Vaske and Jule Ross are both T47 athletes. They'll know each other well from competing around the circuit. And indeed, within Germany. And so far this evening, it is Jule Ross, who competed in multiple events in Paris last year. That is very good on the board from Russ. 5:22 her best. Not sure if it's an improvement on that, but it's been a very consistent series so far. 5:22 in the 2nd round, 5:21 then in the 5th round, and that is 5:21 yet again. Yeah, that is consistency defined. So just 1 centimeter between her 3 leading jumps. 5:28 her best, and Jule Russ will finish in 7th place this evening. Now it's on to the third and final of the para-athletes. Elena Kratter of Switzerland. A single leg amputee. Let's see what she can produce here. 5:32, her best on the evening. That is a foul though, unfortunately. I think it wouldn't have been an improvement regardless for Kratter. So no improvement there. A foul for Kratter to finish what has nonetheless been a very, very promising competition for the Swiss 28-year-old. 5:28 was her best coming into this competition, and she has extended that by 4 centimeters. And she was deservedly celebrating after she had confirmation of that. But now just 5 athletes left to jump, and the first of them trying to get into those podium positions will be Inia Dangelmeier, the 21-year-old German. Her best so far is 6:18. She equaled her season's best in the 5th round. Let's see if Dangelmeier can improve it. She needs just 1 centimeter to get up to 4th place. She would need 17 centimeters up that to get up to 3rd. But Dangelmeier is a 6:26 jumper at her best, so certainly within her wheelhouse. And the conditions so far in Essen are just about ideal for jumping. Very little wind and it's warm. I think that might be. No, it is being measured. So it is a valid attempt there from Inia Dangelmeier. But let's see if it's an improvement. It is not. 6:18. She jumps again. So she mirrors, much like Jule Ross, jumps the exact same distance in round 6 as she did in round 5. And that indeed will be her best distance of the evening. Inia Dangelmeier equaling her season's best twice this evening. So very good consistency for the 21-year-old German. After those early issues on the board, she ironed them out and came back. Now this will be very intriguing. Laura Raquel Muller. She will be delighted just to be back on the long jump runway after such a long absence. An athlete who loves her jumping and loves her athletics. But she's also a competitor. She's won international medals for Germany, European under-20 bronze back in 2023. And of course, an Olympian in Paris last year. She will want to win on home turf. That looks good on the board, but I'm not sure it's quite enough. It's going to be very close, I think, here between Muller and Attermeier. 6:37 her best so far. It is a valid jump. Has Muller pulled it out of the fire in the 6th round? You can see there that was much better on the board. And she has done it, I believe. 6:44 for Laura Raquel Muller. She has, for now, stolen the lead. Let's see if any of the athletes can strike back. Samira Attermeier will have her chance, as will Carolina Klein and indeed Finja Kuchling. But for now, the favourite, the most accomplished vaulter in the field, Laura Raquel Muller, has made a very, very successful return to competition. A few issues early on the competition on the board, but she saved her best for last. 6:44 she leads. Let's see if Attermeier can strike back. That is a good effort, but I don't think it's going to be enough for Attermeier. 6:38 her best. Does not look like an improvement. Looks to be in around the 6:20, 6:25 mark. So it looks like Laura Raquel Muller has one hand on victory this evening in her first competition for, 10 months now almost, since the Paris Olympics. As we see there, 6:27 for Samira Attermeier. No improvement in the final round, but a very, very strong competition for the 21-year-old German. It is a competition where youth is very much coming to the fore. Finja Kuchling is among that youth, 20 years old, from the Eintracht Frankfurt club. 6:51 her best, personal best just a few weeks ago in Wiesbaden. But this evening, 6:19 is her best. She will want one of those top 3 positions, but she'll have to get this right in her 6th and final attempt. not quite. It's not going to be an improvement. It is very close to 6 meters. I think it's just over 6 meters again from Kuchling. But I think the Eintracht Frankfurt athlete is going to have to settle for 4th place this evening. As you can see, fantastic elevation yet again. So that's 6:10 to finish the competition for Finja Kuchling. 5 valid attempts, the best of them coming in round 3 there. 6:19 for Finja Kuchling. And that leaves just one jumper. It is the woman who led at the halfway mark, Carolina Klein, 6,000 point heptathlete. That was all the way back in 2017, but long jump has had her heart in recent years and had her focus. She needs 6 centimeter improvement to catch Laura Muller. That might just have done it. It is very close. It looks to be around the 6:40, 6:45 mark. She bounces out of the pit. Has she done it? No, it is a foul, unfortunately. So unfortunate there for Carolina Klein. It was a big jump too. That's probably 2 centimeters only that she's over the board by Carolina Klein. Nonetheless, a very, very strong competition for her. 6:35. It is the season's best she will walk away with, and indeed a 3rd place finish. And not very far away at all from 2 of her German compatriots.
Ist das wunderschön heute Abend auf dem Kennedy-Platz mitten in der Essener Innenstadt. Wir feiern die Tage der Überflieger. Wir feiern Teil 1 der Tage der Überflieger. Wir haben in den Jugendwettkämpfen herausragende Ergebnisse im Weitsprung, im Hochsprung, im Stabhochsprung gesehen.
So all smiles there in the athletes area, and confirmation that it is a winning return to competition after absence for Laura Raquel Müller. 6:44. She saved the best for last. The young German returns with a bang, and it is a winning return. Samira Attermeyer takes 2nd, 6:38. Excellent jumping from her. And Carolina Klein, 6:35 from her to round out the podium. That is the first of 8 elite events that will be held across this evening and tomorrow afternoon at Kennedy-Platz in the German city of Essen for this year's edition of Tage der Überflieger. That's what's still to come. Pole vault women will be getting underway in about 10 minutes time, and it will be the men's high jumpers followed by the men's long jumpers rounding out competition. Action will be ongoing till close to around 9 p.m. this evening, Central European time. And that was a cracking competition to start off proceedings on the European Athletics live stream. Laura Raquel Müller makes a winning return to competition after such a long absence. Müller is a sports soldier these days. Of course, so many of the German Olympic athletes, their system tied in with the military, where they're given special dispensation to train and of course resume a more regular, I guess, military career once their athletics duties are completed and once they step away from the track. It's good to see Laura Raquel Müller within that system, which has helped produce so many of Germany's Olympic stars across the recent decades, and she might just be the next to them. 6:81 Müller jumped indoors last year, and having overcome those injury problems, looks to be headed in only one direction.
Und ich glaube, das ist schon enorm. Und auch wenn man sieht hier, wie die Menschen mitgehen, es zieht einfach in den Bann.
So, ich könnte Sie jetzt nach Ihren eigenen Leichtathletik-Bestleistungen für Weitsprung oder Hochsprung fragen. Das mache ich nicht. Ich frage Sie einfach nur noch, worauf freuen Sie sich denn am meisten heute Abend? Haben Sie so einen geheimen Favoriten?
Nein, also ich freue mich wirklich auf alle Wettkämpfe, die hier noch stattfinden. Ich bin ganz froh, dass Sie mich nicht nach meinen Leistungen fragen. Deswegen, es ist Wahnsinn, was hier wieder für Weiten und für Höhen erzielt werden. Deswegen, ich bin wirklich auf jedes Event heute gespannt und denke auch, dass die Sportlerinnen und Sportler hier weiter eine ganz tolle Unterstützung vom Publikum bekommen werden.
Ja, darauf hoffen wir gemeinsam. Vielen, vielen Dank, Frau Bürgermeisterin. Und damit ist der Tag der Überflieger, der erste Tag, ganz offiziell eröffnet. Und wir wollen natürlich direkt loslegen. Wir wollen euch nicht warten lassen. Wir wollen direkt anfangen. Und wir haben eine spannende Disziplin für euch vorbereitet, den Stabhochsprung der Frauen. Und damit ihr genau wisst, wie das funktioniert, haben sich die jungen Athleten des TLV Germania Überruhr dazu mal geäußert.
Sie erklären heute, wie Stabhochsprung funktioniert und wie man es macht. Am Anfang muss man erstmal mit viel Tempo auf der Anlaufbahn in Richtung der Matte anlaufen.
So wird der Stab in einen Kasten geschoben.
Der Stab biegt sich dann, wenn der Athlet am Absprung ist, und katapultiert den Athleten so weit wie möglich nach oben.
Der Athlet streckt sich in die Höhe mit den Füßen voraus.
Dann überquert der Athlet als erstes mit den Füßen die Latte und hat den Bauch auf der Latte mäßig liegen und hat den Bauch halt in Richtung der Latte.
Dann fällt der Athlet runter auf die dicke Matte.
Ja, gültig ist der Sprung, wenn die Latte, so wie jetzt, oben auf dem Ständer noch liegt.
Und ungültig, wenn die Latte runterfällt.
Bei jeder Höhe hat jeder Athlet insgesamt 3 Versuche, wo er mit dem kohlenstoffverstärkten Kunststoffstab springen darf.
Wenn man in diesen 3 Versuchen diese Höhe nicht schafft, dann ist man raus.
Viel Glück euch allen.
Wir wünschen allen Athleten viel Erfolg
Und allen Zuschauern viel Spaß.
Und jetzt wissen wir, wie es geht. Und jetzt gucken wir uns an, wer es so richtig gut drauf hat. Achtung, Athleten kommen nicht aus dem Tunnel, die kommen ganz hinten über ihren Stabhochsprunganlauf. Und wir sind gespannt, wer heute dabei ist.
So, next up this evening at the Tag der Überflieger, it will be the women's pole vaulters who are now being introduced to the crowd. This is the first of them from Poland, Sofia Gaborska. She is a 4:23 vaulter at her best. Recent Polish university champion. Next up, it is Sophie Ashurst of Great Britain. 22 years old, she competes for Sale Harriers in Manchester. She has a best of 4:35 from MSC last May. Third up, it is Giada Pozzato of Italy. She is a 4:30 vaulter, 23-year-old who represents Atletica Brescia. Then it is the first of our German athletes in this field, Regina Backenbecker. She has a best of 4:20 indoors. Sorry, that dates back to 2016. 4:20 is her season's best indoors this year. From Czechia, this is Nikola Pošlova. 4:44 is her best, which she jumped in September 2023, and she has been over 4:37 indoors this year. From the Netherlands, the youngest athlete in this field, Elise de Jong. 19 years old, she turned in April, but she is a big talent. Broke the Dutch under-20 record just recent weeks, 4:50. And she will be a formidable challenger this evening. As indeed will this woman, Lea Bachmann, from the Old Boys Basel Club in Switzerland. 4:50 is her best, which she jumped in June last year. This is really an international field. And from Ukraine, this woman, Yana Gladishuk. She is a 4:61 jumper at her best. She has the best personal best in the field. She jumped 4:40 indoors already this year. She's just one outdoor competition, that's why the season's best is quite modest at 4 meters. And another of the Germans, Friedlinda Petershoffen. She has a personal best of 4:55. That dates back to 2017. Just some of the personal bests you're seeing on screen are not accurate. But Petershoffen, I can tell you, has definitely jumped 4:55, and indeed this year she has been over 4:30 indoors. Outdoors, her best, however, is 4:26 in her first competition of the year. Friedlinde Petershoffen, the 29-year-old who represents Werder Bremen. So we see Lea Bachmann there, one of the more senior athletes in the field. She's a doctoral student, but also works for a car sharing app, I think, in Basel, alongside her dad. But Bachmann will certainly be featuring well, I'd imagine, this evening. We should see a few athletes going close to that sort of 4:45, 4:50 territory here. Certainly athletes in the field capable of it, but we'll be starting at a more modest height. 380 will be the first height, and then it will be 395, 410, 425, and then from there it will go up in 10 centimeter increments until 450. And if there's anyone still going at that stage, they'll be going in 5 centimeter increments thereafter. So first into action, which means some athletes have definitely skipped past the 380 opening height. It will be Giada Pozzato of Italy, the 23-year-old who represents Atletica Brescia. She has a personal best of 4:30 that dates back to 2023. It's her first competition of the outdoor season though. However, she did jump 4:20 indoors, broke her indoor PB in Padua earlier this year. 380 here. It's not a successful start to her outdoor season, but she'll have 2 more attempts to get that right. But no joy first up in her opening attempt from Giada Pozzato. Just didn't quite have the height there, Pozzato. She'll be trying to make some necessary adjustments for her second attempt. And I don't see anyone else currently. Oh no. So from Czechia, Nikola Pušlová will now make her opening attempt at 380. Should be a relatively easy clearance for Pušlová. She jumped 4:15 just a fortnight ago on home turf in Czechia. That was in Prague. She jumped 4:37 indoors this year, also in Prague. And Pušlová's best goes back to September 2023. She cleared 4:44. Let's see if she can get this right. Make a positive start. Indeed, it is a very easy clearance for Pušlová. A jumper of her ability. No issues there. She springs into the air up and over 380. As you can see, a great crowd gathering in Kennedyplatz this evening to see many of Europe and the world, some of the leading field eventers. Lots of people will be looking to the men's high jump a little later on. Mateusz Przybylko, former world indoor medalist. But so it looks like just 2 athletes are jumping at 380, and it will be a second attempt for Giada Pozzato. It'll be just her remaining at 380, looking to move on up to 395 if she can get over this. What will be the second time of asking for the Italian. Not quite there for Pozzato on that attempt either. So 1 chance remaining for the Atletica Brescia athlete.
bei Giada Pozzato.
in her opener, her rust buster to the outdoor season. So she'll be given the requisite time, Pozzato. Brief chance, a minute or two to recover, and then that clock will start ticking again. It may well be ticking already. Be keen to keep things moving here. But no, she's been given a chance, a couple of minutes. And looks like she's going to change her pole. Athletes, of course, bring their own poles to competition. It is one of the major headaches of being, well, a national class pole vaulter. It's annoying, but an international or world class pole vaulter, it becomes very annoying trying to take those poles on airlines. A lot of the major airlines will not. They will just refuse to accept poles as part of baggages. Ironically enough, just talking to one of the pole vaulters, it's some of the budget airlines around Europe who are actually some of the best and who are actually willing to take the poles. So it's like Pozzato may have availed of one of those to get her poles to Essen, or who knows, maybe she drove. But either way, she is back on the runway, and it's going to be a third and final attempt at 380 for Pozzato. Having made the trip to Essen, she will be keen not to make it a short-lived competition. And is the start to her outdoor season, Giada Pozzato. Let's see if she can get over 380 on the third and final attempt. So third and final chance for Italy's Giada Pozzato at 380, and that one just went wrong completely. Looked like the pole just almost slipped out of her hand there as she planted it. Either way, a shake of the head, a frustrating competition, and a night to forget results-wise for Giada Pozzato. But it is, of course, the start to her outdoor season, and I'm sure she'll be able to take something at least to go back and work on. But not the way she would have wanted to start her outdoor season for Pozzato. And with that, that's all we'll see at 380. The bar will now be moving to 395.
Neben Nikola Pöchlova, der Tschechin, die die 380 übersprungen hat, kommen dann eine Reihe weiterer Springerinnen hinzu. Elise de Jong aus den Niederlanden und Lea Bachmann, die Schweizerin, wenn die Höhe noch auslassen. Alle anderen Athletinnen dann mit dabei. Und bereit steht bereits.
So we started off with 9 vaulters, we are down to 8. And the bar moves up to 395.
Polnische Hochschulmeisterin geworden. Also vielleicht auch auf dem Weg zu den World Student Games in Wattenscheid. Großes Ereignis ja im Juli hier im Ruhrgebiet. Jetzt geht's in die 395. Erster Versuch dann gleich für Zofia Gaborska.
So from Poland, Zofia Gaborska will be the first of the 8 remaining athletes to attempt 395. Gaborska, recently crowned a Polish university champion just last weekend. She cleared an outdoor PB there, or equaled her outdoor PB of 423. So much like Pushlova at her opening height, it should be a height that she coasts over once she aligns the various parts she needs to align for a successful jump. She's just 20 years old, is Gaborska. It was actually 420 she cleared last weekend. to win that Polish university title. Indoors, however, back in March, she did clear 4:23. I'm sure she will almost take for granted the height after this, even if she's jumping well and feeling good in Essen this evening, which is 4:10. But then there will be a key test. Personal best height will then follow at 4:25. But she won't be looking too far down the line at this stage. She'll just be thinking about this bar, which is set to 3:95, and we just have a slight delay as the officials make absolutely sure that the bar is at the correct height, and then the runway will be cleared for takeoff for Sofia Gaborska.
So, jetzt passt alles, der Anlauf ist frei.
Leading vaulter in this field in terms of personal bests is Yana Gladichuk of Ukraine, who's a 6-time champion, 4:61 her best. Indeed, has been over 4:40 already this year, not as have a few athletes in here. But here is Zofia Gaborska, first attempt at 3:95, and it's a successful one. That was very easy for the young Pole. No issues whatsoever for Gaborska. She coasts over 3:95. And indeed, you would expect her to, given she went over 4:20 last weekend. Good speed on the runway, and from that angle it looked like she had lots of room to spare with that clearance. This will give us a better idea. Yeah, her feet were certainly close to it, but you can see the center of gravity was certainly probably 20 centimeters. The apex of her jump was probably 20 centimeters or so above that bar. She'll just have to be careful of her legs, which were a lot closer to it on the way up. Here is Sophie Ashurst of Great Britain, the 22-year-old from Sale Harriers in the Adidas kit. She has a best of 4:35 going back to last summer. But she's been over 4:15 already this outdoor season during the week in Loughborough, where she is a student at the University of Loughborough. Oh, I don't think... Oh, it has stayed on. Well done, Sophie Ashurst. She definitely had a nervous look up at that bar because there was contact as she went over her opening height of 3:95, but thankfully for Sophie Ashurst, at that height, her work is done, and she will next be looking at 4:10. Yeah, looked to be perhaps just on the way down. Might have been her chest there that just brushed the bar, maybe. And her hip and her chest, I think, just hit that bar as she went over it. It gave it a good rattle, but not nearly enough to bring it down. So, all smiles for Sophie Ashurst, the 22-year-old Briton. Student at that incredible university for producing world-class athletes across a variety of sports, the University of Loughborough, about an hour away from Birmingham. Anyone who knows their British geography. Now it's time to introduce the field for the next event, which will be running in tandem with that women's pole vault alongside, so we'll be jumping back and forth across between the two. It's the men's high jump. There is the full field, and number 9 there is certainly going to be a man a lot of locals will come out to watch. Mateusz Przybyłko, who of course is a world indoor bronze medalist back in 2018 and a former European champion as well that year. So we'll be seeing what he can produce, but it is a very strong field in this men's high jump, and we will get you back to the women's pole vault as soon as possible. We'll keep you updated on what's happening there, but for now we'll introduce these men, starting with Ra Erlend Bolstad of Norway, 2-time national champion, as he just about avoids running into that kid. That would not have been an ideal way to start the competition. But anyway, showing great dexterity, he turned very quickly and he runs on to get himself ready. Next up is Falk Vendrick of Germany. He's a 2:29 jumper at his best, but that dates all the way back to 2017. He hasn't been over heights like that recently. However, he has jumped to 19 just about 2 weeks ago in Bolchenhagen. From India, Nishad Kumar the 25-year-old. He has a best of 2:14 going back to 2022. And out comes Kumar. He is a para-athlete. He is a single-leg amputee. Competes in the T47 category. He has 2 silver medals from the Paralympics 2020 and 2024 games. This is Antios Merlos of Greece, a 4-time national champion. The 26-year-old has a best of 2:24. He has been over 2:20 already this outdoor season. This is Daniel Kussinen of Finland. The 24-year-old has amassed 8 Finnish titles, revving up the crowd there. He has a best of 2:24. From Ukraine, Vadim Kravchuk. He has a personal best, which was set indoors, of 2:25. Outdoors, his best is 2:23. And this indeed is his first competition of the outdoor season. He did, however, go over 2:22 indoors, so it'll be very interesting to see how he fares this evening. He represented Ukraine at the European Indoors earlier this year as well. Jeff Vermeiren of Belgium, the 24-year-old. He has 2 national titles. Getting a great welcome there by that kid's guard of honour, and a little cat's tumble as well, showing his gymnastic ability. He is the reigning Belgian indoor and outdoor champion in the high jump. Next up from Lithuania, it's Andrius Glebauskas. The 30-year-old has 10 national titles, counting indoors and outdoors. In Lithuania, he was the World University Games bronze medalist back in 2019 and an Olympian in Tokyo. He has a best of 2:30. Now this man will get a big cheer upon his introduction. The man with the biggest personal best in the field, from Germany, Mateusz Przybyłko. 33 years old now. It would seem his very best years are behind him, but he's still jumping very well. He jumped 2:23 just last weekend in Weinheim to finish second. This man, another Olympian in Paris, Eric Portillo of Mexico, the 24-year-old. He is a 3-time national champion, has a best of 2:27, which he set last summer. That helped him qualify for those Paris Olympics. But the man I think most people would consider the favourite this evening is Tobias Potier. 30 years old, a 6-time German champion, as counting indoors and outdoors. Personal best of 2:34. That dates back to 2023. He was the German champion indoors this year. He was 6th in the European indoor final as well this year. And of course went out in qualification at the Olympics. He was very disappointed there. No heighted in qualification, having cleared 2:29 just before the games. But he is a very accomplished athlete, Tobias Potier. As we check back with the women's pole vault, and I can tell you we are currently still at a height of 395, and we currently have 5 vaulters who have gone over this. We saw Sophie Ashurst do that. She's been joined by Friedlinda Petershoffen, Jana Gladichuk, Nikola Poshlova, and of course Sofia Gaborska was over it as well to start the competition. So we're swiftly underway as well. And our Norwegian was the first man up. Ra Erland Bolstad goes over 199, which for a man who's cleared 221 should and is absolutely should be no trouble at all. So 199 the opening height. Having a look here at the progressions. Yeah, we'll be starting at 199. Here is Falk Vendrick. Sorry, this is Nishad Kumar. Falk Vendrick has passed at this height and indeed passed at 204. So Nishad Kumar though will get his competition off to a successful start with a clearance at 199. No issues there for the 25-year-old Indian. A 2-time Paralympic silver medalist in the high jump in the T47 category at the last 2 Paralympic Games. He's also a good long jumper. He's been over 7 meters in the long jump. PB recently in California, in Azusa, California. And his season's best in the high jump, although of course it's very early days, is 201. And the next height of 204, he will be looking to improve that. So it looks like everyone else in the competition has indeed passed at 199, and many of them as well at 204, the next height. So the bar is now moved to 204. And the first man to attempt it will be Ra Erland Bolstad, the 25-year-old, the two-time Norwegian champion. Good triple jumper as well. He's just under 15 meters there. And he's a tailor, a man who knows his fashion in his spare time. This is his first competition of the outdoor season. Did clear 222 indoors, did Bolstad. So let's see if he can go over 204 at the first attempt. Good few athletes will be making an appearance here. There's 5 athletes in total who've decided to attempt 204, and Bolstad will be the first of them. And the bar is being moved to 410 in the women's pole vault. We'll get you back to that soon. And a successful first clearance there by Erland Bolstad at 204, the first man over that height. And next up it will be Nishad Kumar. So the Norwegian getting plenty of support there from the locals in Essen, in Kennedyplatz. And if you're wondering why it's called Kennedyplatz, it's named after John F. Kennedy. It used to be called Gildenplatz. And in December 1963, the month after John F. Kennedy was assassinated, the sitting US president at the time, the Germans decided to rename the square Kennedyplatz. Looking back to the pole vault for a moment, because that is Regina Backenecker, and the delight on her face is because she's gone over at the third and final attempt over 395. 5 other athletes had gone over at the first attempt, but Backenecker had failed twice, but she gets it right there. A 440 vaulter at her best, the Olympia Dortmund athlete. And with 2 events running, I can tell you we've got a third upcoming. The men's long jump. And it is a big field for the men's long jump. There are your first 8 of them. And there is some big jumpers in here. 14 athletes in total. And plenty of men who've jumped beyond 8 meters. One of them is from Namibia, Lionel Kotze. He has a best of 8:27. Of course, the German Paralympian, the star Marcus Rehm, will be in action. He has a best of 8:72 for the long jump, and the likes of Simon Batz and Gerson Balde of Portugal as well there have jumped over 8:10. So very exciting men's long jump competition will be upcoming very soon. And we'll now start introducing them. But don't worry if you're trying to follow the pole vault or the high jump. Still early days in both of those, and we'll be getting back and showing you as much as we can of each competition as the 3 unfold simultaneously at the Tage der Überflieger. So that we just saw Jenny Samson of Belgium there being introduced. This is Daniel Wagner of Denmark, 7:39 his best. He is a T63 Paralympic athlete as well. 5 Paralympic medals he has in total. Next up, it is another Paralympic athlete, Leon Schaffer of Germany, the 27-year-old. He is a T63 athlete as well, which means he's a single-leg amputee. He is a 3-time world para long jump champion, and he has 2 Paralympic medals. A bronze in Tokyo 4 years ago, and indeed a silver. That was in the 100, and he also won a silver in the long jump. Next up is Oliver Koletzko of Germany, competes for Mannheim. And then it is Simon Plitzko, the green strip of TSG Bergedorf. Plitzko has a best of 770, which he jumped it just 2 weeks ago or so. The 20-year-old is very much a man on the up. From China, another young athlete with a lot of potential, Jingchen Liu, 789 his best, which he jumped in Nanping in July last year. He's already jumped 757 this year, and just last weekend he jumped 744 in Weinheim. This is Julian Holoschek, the 20-year-old German, competes for Eintracht Frankfurt, and out he comes to a warm welcome. He's a German indoor champ from back in February, jumped 776 to win that title. From Britain, this is Sam Kigali, 27-year-old, competes for Woodford Green, the well-known club. 792 is Kigali's best. That dates back to May last year, and he's all jumped 7 just recently, a few weeks ago. This is Luca Herden, the German, the 25-year-old. 814 is his personal best, which dates back 2 years, but he's already jumped 774 just last weekend in Ettlingen. So he'll be looking to threaten that 8-meter barrier this evening. This man will certainly be hoping to do the same. Sheno Lionel Kotsi of Namibia, the 28-year-old. He is very accomplished. Namibian record back in 2023 of 827. African Championship silver medal last year. This is Kevin Brucke, 23 years old, representing TLV Germania Oberruhr. 768 is his outdoor personal best, but he did jump a windy 783 just last weekend in Weinheim. And the man who appears to be making a phone call on his shoes is Gerson Balde of Portugal. Maybe he's asking him to just help him out a bit tonight. The 25-year-old, an 8-time national champion in Portugal, counting indoor and outdoor titles. He has a personal best of 810, which he jumped in June last year at the European Championships in Rome. This man will need no introduction to a lot of people here. Marcus Rehm set the world record in the T64 long jump back in June 2023. He jumped 872. He does jump off his prosthetic. He's a single leg amputee, competes in the T64 category. He has 4 Paralympic titles, 7 world titles, and 5 European titles in the long jump. And another German, Simon Batz, the 22-year-old, has a personal best of 812, which he jumped in April last year. He's another of the German athletes who's in the school for the military police, currently studying, and he is a big contender this evening, and indeed at any competition I suspect he goes to this year. The 22-year-old is very much an athlete on the up. We'll talk more about him soon enough, but for now it's back to the women's pole vault, and it is Sofia Gaborska. First time failure for her at 410 the bar is now at.
So, der Lauf ist auch im Weitsprung frei für Yannis Samson aus Belgien. Und unser erster Springer ist in der Grube.
So Gaborska was the first athlete to attempt 410.
Und die erste Weite ist 7 Meter.
And it looks like Sophie Ashurst will be next up.
Yannis Samson. Im Stabhochsprung sind wir bei 4,10 Meter inzwischen. Sophie Ashurst aus Großbritannien mit dem ersten Versuch.
So, Sophie Ashurst, she really broke through on the international stage back in 2022. She finished 6th at the World Under 20 Championships there in Cali, Colombia. And she soars up and over 410, and she is justifiably delighted with that, is Ashurst. Brilliant clearance by the 22-year-old Sail Harrier. She was 3rd at the British Championships last summer. And she was recently a silver medalist at the British University Championships. She cleared 391 there, but as I mentioned earlier, she did clear 415 at the Loughborough Open just during the week, a few days ago. So she is over 410, I should say, this evening, and the next height will be a big one for her, 425, getting up there towards her personal best of 435. Next up, however, the woman who pulled it out of the fire at 395 on her 3rd attempt. It is Regina Backenecker of the LG Olympia Dortmund club. Did she get this one right on her 1st attempt? Not quite. So no joy there for Regina Backenecker. She has been over 420 already this year, albeit indoors. This, of course, is her first competition of the outdoor season. Some people may know her by her maiden name, which was Kramer, Regina Kramer. But since getting married, she's gone by Regina Backenecker, 32 years old now. Her personal best of 440 dates back to 2016. And with what I assume is her coach there, just reviewing on the tablet what exactly was amiss on that jump. She'll have 2 more attempts.
Im Weitsprung, erster Versuch für Oliver Kolecko, den Mannheimer.
So, Nikola Poshlova from Czechia, the 26-year-old who competes for the club Tepo Kladno. This is her first attempt at 410.
Und Nikola Poshlova im Stabhochsprung, 4,10 Meter.
So no joy there, unfortunately, for Poshlova. She was over 415 just recently in Prague a couple of weeks ago. And she will have 2 more attempts at 410.
Und dann beginnt der Wettkampf jetzt auch für Matthäus Milko vor der Seitentribüne. Ja, und das war der standesgemäß.
Over to the men's high jump. And Mateusz Przybylko makes his entry and makes his exit from the mat successfully. 209, he coasts over that. Which really you'd expect from a man of his caliber, his class, but makes no mistake. And it's still early days, of course, but at 209, the height we're now at, I can tell you Erland Bolstad and Falk Vendrick have both gone over it. Tobias Potier will now enter the competition, his first attempt at 209. Yeah, we have 7 athletes already over 209. Nishad Kumar had a first time failure, but Potier makes absolutely no mistake. Easy as you like for the German. We'd certainly expect him to feature strongly towards the end of this competition, given his ability. And as I mentioned, most athletes over 209 already at the first attempt. Antonios Merlos of Greece and Eric Portillo of Mexico have decided to pass They will be entering the competition at the next height, which is 214, will be going up in 5 centimetre increments this evening. So with all the men who are going to attempt 209 going clear at the first attempt, it's down to the one man who recorded a failure, Nishad Kumar of India.
Und der Anlauf ist frei für den deutschen Hallenmeister, für Julian Holoschek von Eintracht Frankfurt im Weitsprung der Männer.
Kumar, 25-year-old, as I mentioned a while ago, 2 Paralympic silver medals in the high jump in the T47 category in 2020 and 2024. And he gives that bar a little brush, but it is not enough to dislodge it, and Nishad Kumar will be moving on up to 214 momentarily, joining the rest of the competitors. So we've lost no athletes so far at the opening 3 heights, and the bar will now, things will be getting a little bit more interesting and difficult, of course, at 214. Over in the pole vault, I can tell you that 3 women have gone clear at 410. Sophie Ashurst, Elise de Jong and Jana Gladishuk. Some other big contenders who we'd expect to feature, like Leah Bachmann, have decided to pass. They'll be entering at 425. And Sofia Gaborska, Nikola Postlova and Regina Bakenecker have all recorded 1 failure and will soon be taking their second attempts. But in the men's high jump, which we'll stick with for now, Erland Bolstad is about to take his first attempt.
Dieses Jahr schon 7,91 gesprungen und jetzt öffnet hier in Essen mit 7,72.
So first attempt at 214 for Erland Bolstad. He rouses some atmosphere there from the crowd, generates a bit of noise for himself. As you can see there, just has a bit of strapping on that left calf, which is his jumping leg. Hits the ground well, good technique, but it's not quite enough to hoist himself over that bar at 214. But 2 more attempts await for Bolstad. And we're, just to update you, we're well underway in round 1 as well of the men's long jump at the moment. Sam Kugali of Britain is leading the way there with a 772 effort, with about 9 athletes so far on the mark and another 5 athletes left to go. But we'll focus our attention on the high jump for the moment, and it is over to our 2-time Paralympic medalist, and he has 3 medals from the World Para Championships as well. Nishad Kumar, the 25-year-old Indian, has a personal best of 214. That will be the next height, but if he wants to equal that this evening, he's got to get over this one. Recorded 1 failure at 209. Sorry, yes, this is which would equal his PB if he can get over it. Getting confused there for a moment, but yeah, 1 failure on the board now at 214 for Nishad Kumar. And he joins Erland Bolstad with 1 X on the board at 214. It was a good attempt, really very close there for Kumar, just didn't quite come off. But either way, he has a season's best to walk away with at 209, but he will be desperate to equal his personal best, which dates all the way back to 2022 and is 214. Now it's time for a bit of long jumping. That graphic is wrong. That is not Lionel Kotzi. This is Kevin Brucke of Germany.
Und Essen macht mit dem
Let's see what he can open his account with in this men's long jump. Competes for TLV Germania, Überflieger. Get it right, looks good on the board. That's looks to be beyond 750, or certainly close to 750. He is a 768 jumper outdoors. But as I mentioned, he did jump that windy 783 recently in Weinheim just last weekend. But he had a 3 meters per second tailwind there. Let's see how he was on the board. Yeah, about maybe 10 centimeters or so left behind there, but not bad at all for his opening effort. And Kevin Brucha, 729 he opens his competition with. Puts him in 8th place at the moment. The lead still being held by Sam Kagali of Britain with 772. Now it is the man who was talking to his shoe on the way out, Gerson Balde, making the imaginary phone call. He is a very accomplished long jumper. Let's see what he can produce here in round 1. 810 is his personal best, but he jumped 790. It's his season's best. Fantastic height there off the board. He absolutely floats through the air, does the 25-year-old Portuguese athlete. Gets the green mark. It will be measured. The only question is, how big is that? That must be very close to 8 meters. And we hear it in the background there. Meeting record 791 for Gerson Balde. He swoops to the front of this competition. And certainly looks like there's plenty more distance there for Balde, if he can produce it. Now it is Markus Rehm. First attempt for the German star, who, as I mentioned, when it comes to just the long jump, he has relay medals as well, but in just the long jump he has 4 Paralympic gold medals, 7 world titles and 5 European titles. He's now 36 years old, but he's not slowing down. Let's see what he's produced here. You can see there he got that one wrong because his arms are actually much further back in the pit than where his feet mark the sand. So it's not what he wanted. Markus Rehm for sure. See his elbows there just crashing down further to the left in the sand. He's well behind the board. I'm sure he'll be making an adjustment if he sees that. Trying to get a bit closer next time. But back to the pole vault, and it is Sofia Gaborska taking her second attempt at 410. No, that is in fact her third and final attempt at 410. So that's the end of the competition for Sofia Gaborska. And I can tell you that 5 athletes have gone clear, as we're shooting back to the long jump here all of a sudden. And Markus Rehm opened with 746 it was for Rehm in that first round. But the lead is that jump we just saw by Simon Batz, 798. We saw it from behind at least. Simon Batz of Mannheim has swept to the front with a 798 jump. This is Yanni Samson of Belgium. He's currently down in 5th place. 757 his best on the evening, but obviously very early days. Let's see what Yanni Samson can produce here. Slaps that board on takeoff. Looks to be in around the mid 7 meter range. Season's best of 760. That was just last weekend in Limassol. Equal his outdoor PB. Back to the women's pole vault. This is the third and final attempt for Regina Beckenecker. She backed out of that. She bailed quite early, but not too late. Thankfully, as you can see, there's a reason she's walking so fast, because she didn't break the plane there. So the clock will be running, and she will still get to make an attempt here. A third and final attempt at 410 for Regina Beckenecker. So the 32-year-old who represents the Olympia Dortmund club. It's now or never on the night for Beckenecker. Third and final attempt at 4:10. It's not to be for the German. So you can see her lying back, just soaking in the moment for a bit before she gets to her feet. And unfortunately it's all over on this night for Regina Beckenecker. Couldn't quite reproduce what she did indoors a few months ago, 4:20. But nonetheless, a solid start to the outdoor season. And up from here. Back to the men's high jump. And Erland Bolstad Ra, second attempt, or Ra Erland Bolstad, I should say, is taking his second attempt at 2:14. Oh, he gives it a big rattle and it just falls off. That is heartbreaking for the Norwegian. He certainly had the height. The 25-year-old just couldn't quite generate enough to get over that bar. It was very much one of those 50-50s with the way he hit it. You can see the bar there stayed up for a few seconds but just wobbled off in the end. Yeah, it bounced up and down 2 or 3 times there, the bar, and then just enough momentum to carry it off. But a third and final attempt will await for Erland Bolstad. And now it is the turn for the second attempt of Nishad Kumar. As I mentioned, his personal best is 2:14. Trying to equal that here. Getting the crowd going. A man who's so accomplished in Paralympic sport and parasport. 3 world medals, 2 Paralympic medals. Let's see what he can produce here. 2:14. Oh, it was close again. He smiles, a smile of a bit of resignation. I think he knows he has that height, but everything just has to align perfectly for Kumar. Oh, it's really one of the most accomplished field eventers in the parasport realm. He lost his hand in a grass cutting machine in his youth on the family farm in India. And he has since made a really huge name for himself in the world of parasport. As I mentioned, Paralympic silver medals at the Tokyo Games and indeed in Paris last year in the T47 category. So, time for a bit of long jumping. And midway through the second round, the lead is still being held by Simon Batz, the German, ahead of Gerson Balde of Portugal, and then Sam Kigali back in third. They have all 1 attempt, and the man who's about to take his second attempt is Jingchen Liu of China. 21 years old, 7:33 to open his competition, but personal best last summer of 7:89, so he's capable of a lot more than that. Let's see if Liu can get it here. He's way behind the board. That's just never going to work. Even if you nail the jump, he's just giving away way too much distance there. It comes down probably around 7 meters, but you see here he isn't even threatening to get that foot on the board. And it is a good jump though. He goes beyond 7 meters, so look at that. He's barely in his shot there. That must be 30-40 centimeters at least he's left behind him. But it's early days, a 7 meter effort, so you could probably call that about 7:35 or more. But I'm sure Liu will make the necessary adjustments as we look back to the high jump, the men's high jump, where the bar is at 2:14, and Andrius Glebauskas of Lithuania will make his second attempt. And it's an unsuccessful one, unfortunately, for the 30-year-old. It is a challenging height. He jumped 215 indoors this year, but his best in these early stages of the outdoor season, 213. So he would be looking at a season's best there if he got over it. Just couldn't quite get it. But he has missed a lot of time with injury in recent years. His personal best of 230, truly world-class operating. That dates back to 2021. But he's had a lot of injury problems in recent years. But either way, it's great to see him healthy. But he'll be a lot happier, I'm sure, if he can get over 214 at the third and final attempt. One of the favourites, though, for the men's high jump, Tobias Potier, had a little blip at 214 in the first attempt. No such issues on his second attempt. The man who's been over 234 in recent years. He was training in South Africa earlier this year. And the sun on his back, I'm sure, has done him the world of good, because he 214 there at the second attempt. This is his first outdoor competition of the season. So a lot of people will be very interested to see how Tobias Potier gets on here. As I mentioned, 229 right before the Paris Olympics last year. But unfortunately, it went wrong for him on the big stage. He no-heighted in qualifying. So, Ra Erland Bolstad back in the men's high jump. Third attempt for the Norwegian. To keep himself in the competition, the 25-year-old. When he's not clearing bars, he's making suits and modelling them very well. Let's see if he can turn in a model effort here, because it's going to challenge him, and it's not quite there for Bolstad, unfortunately. You can see the frustration. He knows that's a height he's more than capable of. He's been over 222 already this year indoors. But this, of course, is his first outdoor competition of the year, and perhaps a bit of cobwebs to be blown off for all athletes in that situation. No one's going to be peaking for May. But he will have certainly wanted to go over 214 this evening in Essen. Not to be for Bolstad. So, Nishad Kumar, let's see if he can equal his best. Third and final attempt for the Indian at 214. As I mentioned, 2 silver medals from the World Para Championships, 1 bronze medal across the last 6 years or so, and of course 2 Paralympic silver medals from both Paris and Tokyo. But the only thing that matters right now is that bar in Essen, and it's at 214, third and final attempt. Not to be, unfortunately, for Kumar. So his competition is at an end. Gets a warm round of applause from the crowd. And good to see him smiling. It's been a solid effort. That second attempt clearance at 219. Makes it a pretty night for Kumar. Onwards and upwards for the Indian high jump star of parasport. So we have a number of men gone already, Bolstad and Kumar, and there could be another couple joining them, because for Jeff Vermeeren and Andreas Glebauskas, their third and final attempts now await at 214. But it's back to the long jump for now, because Kevin Brucke is on the runway. We're getting towards the end of the second round in the long jump, but no, I say that we're going straight back to the high jump, because it is a third and final attempt for Andreas Glebauskas. 214. It's not to be, unfortunately, for the Lithuanian. But you have to say it's disappointment for Glebauskes, but it is brilliant to see the Lithuanian back. He has missed the last few summer seasons, the majority of the summer seasons in recent years, so let's hope. We wish him good health and we'll see him back to his best later in the summer. Back to the long jump. Kevin Brucha, second attempt. It's a good effort, but does it get the green flag? He was very close. He does get measured. All systems are go for Kevin Brucha. He is currently sitting down in 12th position, 7:29 his best. Good on the board there. Didn't leave too much distance behind him, and that looks to be in the 7:60 range perhaps. 56. That moves Brucha up to 8th place. The lead still being held by Simon Batz with that first round effort of 7:98 out of Gerson Balde. And we haven't seen much pole vaulting in a while. And we go back just in time. The bar is currently at 4:25. So no joy there for Friedlinde Petershoffen. Sorry, did I say no joy? I of course meant a success. Lots of joy for Friedlinde Petershoffen, a first time clearance at 4:25. And she is just one of two athletes, including Nicola Poshlova, who have gone clear at 4:25. Sophie Ashurst, Elise de Jong, and Jana Gladichuk all recorded first time failures, along, of course, with Lea Bachmann at 4:25. So, second attempts upcoming for Ashurst, de Jong, Gladichuk, and Bachmann. But for Petershoffen and Poshlova, it's onwards and upwards soon enough to 4:35. As we look back to that second attempt for Gerson Balde in the men's long jump, it's no improvement, unfortunately, for the Portuguese. He stays in second place. And from one of the long jump stars to another of them, Marcus Rehm. 7:46 in the first round. A well-known figure by all in German sport. A real icon of global Paralympic sport and parasport. Marcus Rehm, great speed on the runway there. Looks good on the board, but I'm not sure that's an improvement. It's probably an improvement actually, but I'm not sure it's going to be enough to threaten the sort of top three or so. Marcus Rehm. Yeah, it's probably down around the 7:70. It's going to move him right up there though. He was down in 10th place before this, and look how much distance he left. Jumping off the track there as well instead of the board, so losing a bit on that. 7:53, it's an improvement, but it only moves him up. Well, I don't know, it actually keeps him in 10th place. So no improvement in position, but an extra bit of distance for Marcus Rehm, who certainly could be jumping 20 centimetres more if he gets it right on the board. But the leader, the man we saw jump from behind in the first attempt, we'll get a proper look at him this time, Simon Batz. Can he become the first man here to go beyond 8 metres? The Bavarian athlete. Yeah, that's just model long jumping there from Batz, who competes for MTG Mannheim. That was a beautiful jump. He looked good on the board, and you can just see the hang time in the air is exquisite. And look at that leg shoot at the end. It's only 2/3 the way through his jump that he really gets those legs out and arrowed out in front of him. And it is a big, big effort there from Simon Batz. 8:01. He indeed becomes the first man to go beyond 8 metres at the target there, Überflieger. And on a home turf in Germany, he is starting from 7:98 and 8:01. He leads the way through 2 rounds. Confirmation there, that meeting record for Simon Batz, who was a European Under-23 silver medalist back in 2023, the Bavarian. He used to be focused on football until 16, and I'm sure many in German athletics are glad he turned his back on that and brought his talents to athletics. He was 4th in the World Indoor Championships last year. This is Lea Bachmann. in the pole vault, and she goes clear. That was her second attempt, and a successful one for her, Lea Bachmann. We expected her to feature prominently, and the Swiss athlete would have been disappointed to bow out at 4:25, but no such worries. She is the fourth athlete to go clear at 4:25, with the bar now going up to 4:35. Well, not quite now, in a few minutes' time, but you see over that with a bit of room to spare, just brushed it with her chest on the way down. But a good clearance there from Lea Bachmann, and no doubt that more is possible. Sophie Ashurst will be taking her third attempt soon enough. In fact, first up will be Jana Gladichuk. But back to the men's long jump, and it is Daniel Wagner. Looks like it could be a foul. Going to be very close. Does get measured. Gets the green light. But one of the stars of the evening, or one of the stars of German athletics. Number of years he's been on the scene. Mateusz Przybyłko, first attempt for him. Perfect record so far, and he maintains it. Przybyłko, very impressive clearance there. Just gave it a slight brush on the way over, but he goes over 2:19, and he maintains that perfect record. And I can just tell you that jump you saw a while ago from Daniel Wagner was 7:04. He stays down in 13th in that long jump. And in this men's high jump, next up, it's going to be Eric Portillo of Mexico, an Olympian last year in Paris. And there's some high energy music playing there in the background, which he seems to be enjoying. Let's see if it'll help him up and over. 2:19 at the first attempt, not quite there for Portillo. A three-time national champion in Mexico. Bowed out in qualification at the Olympics last year. He was the Junior Pan American Championships gold medalist back in 2021. And he hails from Chihuahua. It was a good attempt, but not quite there for him. Maybe just a tiny bit far from the bar there, his high point, as we see a big here coming up for Sophie Ashurst, the Loughborough student. Third and final attempt for her to stay in this competition. Oh, she's got it! Just about, she got it! She runs quickly off that mat before that bar gets any ideas. But Sophie Ashurst, at the third attempt, her final attempt at 4:25, goes clear. That is a big season's best. Previous season's best was 4:15 earlier this week, and she's lopped another 10 centimeters onto that. And the next height will be her personal best height, 4:35, which she did last year. It's a great angle there. You see it was her leg, it was on the way up that she hit it. Such a very fine balance for vaulters to strike, just where you get that high point. Start to arc your body into an inverted V, but getting that high point exactly over the bar is a very, very difficult thing. But well done to Sophie Ashurst, the 22-year-old Sale Harrier. She stays in this competition. One of, I think it's 5 athletes now. Yeah, it is only 5 athletes who've been clear at 4:25. For Linda Petershoffen, Nicola Poshlova, Elise de Jong, Lea Bachmann and Sophie Ashurst. This could be, however, the 6th. It would be the final one to go clear, if possible. Otherwise, Jana Gladichuk's competition will be over. It's a third and final attempt for the Ukrainian. She will have come here very much confident of being able to get this kind of height. She did jump 440 indoors earlier on this year, but just started with one outdoor competition in recent weeks. Cleared 4 meters in that, so either way she's taken a step forward this evening with that 410 clearance. But 425 sounds a whole lot better. 410. Gladishuk was 4th at the World Indoors back in 2022. An accomplished vaulter, but not tonight. It's just not quite her night. And she just bailed on that attempt. Pretty much as soon as she put the pressure through the pole, and her expression says it all. It's not a competition she'll look back on too fondly in terms of the result, but hopefully she enjoyed the atmosphere in Kindplatz in Essen. She just knew something was amiss. I think she veered a little bit out to the right there as well, and that's all lost height when you're moving to the side that. So disappointment for Gladishuk. Good to see her raise a smile and a appreciative clap and a wave to the crowd in Essen, who gave her such good support. But back to the men's high jump. And it's the Mexican maestro, Eric Portillo from Chihuahua, taking his second attempt at 2:19. He travelled all over Europe last year, accumulating those ranking points and fundraising his way to get around to try and make his Olympic dream a reality. It did become a reality in Paris. And 2:19 becomes a reality tonight as he soars over at the second attempt. Eric Portillo, who's a physio student at the Universidad del Valle de Mexico. ...24 years old now. That is a textbook clearance there. Just gave it the slightest brush on the way over. But Portillo, who has a best of 2:27, which he cleared last year outdoors, his indoor P 2:28. And one of the men who will be favoured to fare well this evening, Tobias Potier, competes for Stadtwerke München. He is the reigning German indoor champion. He was 6th in the European indoor final this year. He'll want to get this on the second attempt, and he does. Potier makes no mistake there. Soars over. And there are now 6 men clear at 2:19. And we will have a chance to add a 7th momentarily. Vermeuren of Belgium will be taking his 3rd and final attempt. That is a beautiful clearance. Did not touch that bar on the way over. Certainly bigger heights in the offing for Tobias Potier. As we look back to the men's long jump. And the lead still being held in the men's long jump by Simon Batz at 8:01, ahead of Gerson Balde, who is yet to improve his 7:91, and then back in 3rd from Britain, Sam Kogali did improve in the second round, 7:89. Let's see what this mark was.
Und wir sind im dritten Versuch bei den 2,19 Meter im Hochsprung. Jeff Vermeuren.
So, 3rd attempt there for Jeff Vermeulen, and it's a failure, unfortunately, for the Belgian. Frustration. Utter frustration. His competition is over at 2:19. And that means that 6 men will move on up to the next height. The next height will be 2:23. We're going to go up in a 4 centimeter increment. And then after that it will be 2:26. Assuming, that is, some people are left in the competition by then. But 6 men, Mateusz Przybyłko, Antonios Merlos, Vadim Kravchuk, Eric Portillo, Tobias Potier, and Neil Cullen, the flying Finn. Those 6 men will be moving up to the next bar, which is 2:23, as we look back to the women's pole vault, and Nikola Poshlova of Czechia making her first at 4:35. And it's a successful one, a very successful one for Poshlova, and she is quite rightly absolutely delighted with that. That's a big outdoor season's best for her. As I mentioned, 4:15 was her best coming this season in the outdoor season. She did, however, clear 4:37 during the indoor season. And with that first time clearance at 4:35, certainly looks capable of getting the next height. So we'll have a better idea here. Yeah, there's certainly several centimeters more. If she can replicate that at the next height of 4:45, Pushlova may well have herself a lifetime best. Her personal best currently is 4:44, but she'll be trying 4:45 very soon. No joy there, unfortunately. It was a very good attempt though by Elisa de Jong. 4:35 first attempt. It's unsuccessful for de Jong, the Dutch athlete. A real rising star. Only turned 19 in April, but just a couple of weeks ago she set the Dutch under-20 record at 4:50 in the Netherlands, taking victory there. And as you see there, definitely has the height. No doubt about that. 4:35 is there, but just perhaps the alignment not exactly where it needed to be on that. But the good news is she'll have 2 more attempts, will de Jong. Back to the men's long jump. So it is a valid attempt there. It has been measured. The lead still being held by Bats at 8:01, with Balde in second on 7:91. Sam Kagali back in third. He had 7:74 in his third attempt. Now let's see if Gerson Balde can improve his position. He's currently in second. He's only 10 centimeters behind the leader, Simon Bats. But Balde is certainly one of the athletes who is capable of going beyond 8 meters. Gerson Balde takes off down the runway. Great speed on the runway. You just see shorten that stride. Second last step there. Lowering that center of gravity. It is unfortunately a foul for Balde. So no improvement on the 7:91 obviously in his first round. It was very close though. He looked to be making the adjustment there on the board. I would not imagine that was too far over the board. You could see him putting his, only a couple of centimeters really there. 3 or 4 maybe at most for Balde. Textbook technique there. Reaching. There's certainly an 8-meter jump in him, but he hasn't quite found it yet this evening. As we see Marcus Rehm in the third round of the men's long jump. Let's see what Rehm can produce. 7:53 his best so far. It has him down in 10th place. But as a man who's jumped well over 8.5 meters, he will want a lot more than that. Marcus Rehm, that is a big one. That is a really big one, but it gets another red flag, unfortunately. He had 2 valid attempts to start the competition, but this one is his first foul. 7:53 will not be improved, and it's probably a little bit over there, alright. Maybe 5 or 7 centimeters, unfortunately, for Marcus Rehm. So he stays down in 10th place. But that jump looked to be way over 8 meters, so it'll be very interesting to see if he can get that board right, what Marcus Rehm can produce on home turf in Germany. Back to the men's high jump, where another German is very much delivering the goods. Mateusz Przybyłko went over 2:23 at the first time of asking, as we see the replay of it here. We were just concentrating on the long jump at the time. An absolute delight there for Przybyłko to go over 2:23. Brilliant stuff from him. As we see the long jump leader, Simon Bats, 8:01 in the second round. Let's see what he can produce here in round 2. Don't think that's an improvement. It will be measured. Gets the green flag. but it's not going to be bigger than 8:01 for Simone Batts, unfortunately. Back to the high jump. It's all the action coming thick and fast here. Eric Portillo, his first attempt at 2:23. Can he join Pribilko and go over this at the first height? We had failures from Antonios Merlos, Vadim Kravchuk, and Daniel Kosonen. And now the Mexican 24-year-old will be looking to join Pribilko, the senior statesman of this field. Up and over 2:23. It's a good effort, a very good effort, but it's not quite there from Portillo. Just looked like he didn't quite have the height there. So a first time failure for the Mexican Olympian. And just watching back his attempt there, seeing what he can spot, seeing if there's anything technically perhaps he can change for his second and third attempts if needed. Next up will be Tobias Poitier. It was a very, very good attempt. Not too much wrong with that at all. Perhaps just the high point, just maybe didn't have the power to get up and over it, but it's a height he's been over before, and Eric Portillo, I'm sure, will feel very confident that one of his next two attempts he can get that right. But here is the first attempt of Tobias Poitier. The 30-year-old German, he has 6 national titles in the high jump in total, indoors and out. Poitier goes clear, and you can see the crowd are absolutely delighted about that. Certainly hyped him up, said he'd be one of the big contenders for a home win this evening, and he's certainly delivering the goods so far. 2022 European silver medalist. He was 5th in the world final back in 2023. And he had that crushing disappointment in Paris last year to go out in qualification without recording a clearance. But he is coming in hot to 2025. 6th in the European indoor final earlier this year. Won the German indoor title as well. And also went over 2:24 indoors. This is a start to his outdoor season. And it's very much so far so good for Poitier. As we look back at Antonios Merlos, his second attempt now for the Greek athlete. At 2:23, can he join Pribilko and Poitier? He cannot. No joy there for Merlos. 2:24 is his best, but he went over at 2:21 indoors. He's been over 2:20 outdoors already. So 2:23, certainly a challenging height for Merlos, but he knows he has it within his wheelhouse. If he can just get everything aligned just right, and I think his shoulder just clipped that, started that motion before the rest of his torso got to it, on the way up pretty much there for Merlos. So he will have one more attempt remaining, however. And over to the long jump, that is the state of play. After 3 rounds, Simone Batts leading Gerson Balde and Sam Kigali in what is a tightly contested competition up the front. One man over 8 meters right now. And the Paralympic star from Germany, Markus Rehm, the senior statesman of the field, down in 10th position at the moment with that best of 7:53, but we know he can produce an 8-meter jump. But back to the pole vault, and a bright smiling Sophie Ashurst is on the runway enjoying the atmosphere at the Kennedy Platz, and she is looking up at a bar that is set to 4:45. Sorry, 4:35. This is her third and final attempt at 4:35. So it's already been a good competition for her. That third time clearance at 4:25, that was the season's best. If she can get over 4:35, this will equal her personal best, which she cleared last year in France. Third and final attempt then for the athlete from Manchester, Sophie Ashurst. No, she just bailed out of that on the way up. But bright smiles, warm waves to the crowd, and handshakes to the officials for Sophie Ashurst. It's nonetheless been a very good evening. 4:25, that third time clearance. It's a big step forward in her year to date, and it's a big season's best. And it currently has her in 5th position. And I think that's where she'll be finishing, because I think Leah Bachmann, yes, has has her on countback with fewer fails. So Leah Bachmann will be next up, making her third attempt at 4:35. But we're back to the men's high jump because Eric Portillo is about to take his second attempt. The native of Chihuahua in Mexico. 2:23, second attempt for Eric Portillo. As I mentioned, it's getting close to his personal best. Let's see if he can get it. Not quite there for him. 2:25, his season's best indoors. But this is his annual best, I should say, this year. But this is his season's best, of course, because it is his first competition of the outdoor season, that 2:19. And now, as I mentioned, Leah Bachmann, 4:35, third and final attempt for the Swiss athlete. Let's see if she can produce the goods. Under pressure, it is a height she's more than capable of getting. She did go over 4:40 in Basel just a couple of weeks ago to finish third, but can Leah Bachmann produce here on foreign soil in Germany? The Swiss vaulter, no. It's not quite there for Leah Bachmann. Unfortunately, dejection on her face. 4:25, she will finish this competition in fourth place. And then there were only three. And those three are Friedlinda Petershoffen, Nicola Postlova and Elise de Jong, as we look back to the men's high jump and see if Greece's Antonios Merlos can join the two Germans, Tobias Potier and Mateusz Przybyłko, over 2:23. His third and final attempt. Not to be, unfortunately. And there is such frustration on the face of Merlos. He gave it his best effort. It was a good effort. It looked like the best of his three attempts, but it wasn't quite to be for Merlos. And with that, he exits the competition. And we will now have three more third attempts for the other three athletes, who are Vadim Kravchuk, Eric Portillo, and Daniel Kosonen. Yeah, it was a very, very good attempt there by Antonios Merlos. Very close to getting that right, but you could see just his shoulder and his backside just brushed that off slightly. Another centimetre or two he might have had it, but not quite to be for him there. So, time for the flying Finn, Daniel Kosonen. Third and final attempt for him at 2:23 in the men's high jump. His season's best. I think this is his opening. Yeah, it is indeed his opening competition of the outdoor season, but he cleared 2:23 indoors, the European indoors. Can he do it again here? No, not quite there for him. Nonetheless, 2:19 clear. It's been a good start to the outdoor season for Daniel Kosonen, but he would have loved to have started with a 2:23 clearance, which is right on the cusp of his lifetime best, 2:24, which he cleared in Helsinki last year. But nonetheless, a good effort there from Daniel Kosonen. It looks like he'll finish down in about 6th place, I think. Just looking on the count. And with that, there are now just two men who can join the two Germans at the next height of 2:26. And those two men are Vadim Kravchuk, that man in your shot, and Eric Portillo. Third and final attempt then for Kravchuk. This would be a season's best. It's his first competition of the outdoor season. But in terms of 2025, he's been over 2:22 indoors. But his lifetime best is 2:25, so this is a difficult height for Kravchuk. Let's see if he can get a third and final attempt for the Ukrainian. Not to be, unfortunately. So no joy there for Kravchuk. And with that, it will be just down to Eric Portillo of Mexico to try to join the two Germans, Przybyłko and Potier, at the next 26. And you can see, just didn't quite have the height there. Kravchuk, not to be for the Ukrainian, but live to jump another day. A good effort nonetheless, that first time clearance at 2:19. Now, Eric Portillo. If he doesn't get this, it's going to be a head-to-head. Two Germans going for victory. Older men in the field, Tobias Potier and Mateusz Przybyłko. But this is a height that Eric Portillo has cleared before. It's a height he's very confident, no doubt, he'll be able to clear again. 2:27 he cleared last summer on the path to those Olympics in Paris. Can he get over 2:23 here at the third and final time of asking for the Mexican? Not quite to be.
Leider nicht.
Very, very close for Eric Portillo. He manages to raise a smile amid the disappointment and bow to the crowd. It is a fantastic atmosphere there for the jumpers. So no joy on the evening, but Eric Portillo walks away with a bright smile. He finishes down in, I think, 5th place. I'll just sort out the countback situation there, but there's no doubt about the top two. Anyway, yeah, I think Eric Portillo is going to finish 5th. Antonius Merlos and Vadim Kravchuk will finish joint 3rd because they recorded the same amount of failures. Eric Portillo had one more than both of them, even though they all finished with the same height, 2:19, and then it will be a head-to-head for victory between Przybyłko and Potier. So back over to the women's pole vault, and Friedlinde Petershoffen is going to take her first attempt at 4:45. We've had 2 attempts already at 4:45 by Nicola Poslova and Elise de Jong, neither of which were successful. Let's see if Petershoffen can change that narrative and become the first to go over 4:45. And just checking in on the men's long jump, I can tell you that we are into round 4. And Marcus Aim, who had been languishing way down the field, has produced a 7:93 jump to move up to 2nd place overall. So the Germans are very much producing the goods on home turf as we await this first attempt at 4:45 by Friedlinde Petershoffen. She just had one competition before this in the outdoor season, and as we see her just back out of that jump, she jumped over 4:26 just a couple of weeks ago. So she's already got herself a season's best with that 4:35. Her personal best is 4:55. Petershoffen, who represented Germany at the 2017 Worlds back in London 8 years ago now. And another man who was on the scene back then very much was Mateusz Przybyłko. And he's very much still on the scene now. Let's see if he can get over 2:26 at the first time of asking. Not to be for Przybyłko. He was 5th in the world final all back in 2017. And he is still jumping very, very well. He was 12th in the European final last year in Rome, but injury unfortunately put paid to the rest of his season after that. But it's great to see Przybyłko back. So no joy there at the first attempt for the German. Yeah, just his shoulders really knocked that bar off on the way up. As we look back to the women's pole vault, and a second attempt here, but it's an unsuccessful one, unfortunately. Still though, a good attempt by Nicola Poslova. Second attempt by her at 4:45. Currently leading there due to the countback situation is Petershoffen, as we see Tobias Potier take his first attempt at 2:26. So just a head-to-head in the men's high jump. Meanwhile, the women's pole vault is a 3-way clash between Petershoffen, Poslova and de Jong. And it's still very much all to play for in the men's long jump as we creep through the 4th round there. But focusing back on this, can Tobias Potier get over at the first time of asking? He can! Come at the hour, come at the man. And Tobias Potier of Cologne Athletics, representing Cologne Athletics this year, proudly goes over there, brilliantly goes over 2:26 at the first time of asking. Well done to Potier. Yeah, that is just beautiful clearance there. I think for especially the side on angle, you'll really see the way he just arcs his body beautifully over that bar. He just gave it a little brush there, I think, with his legs towards the end. But 2:26, a season's best. He cleared 2:24 indoors, so brilliant stuff from Potier. As we check in, it's been a while since we saw much of the men's long jump, but we could have the chance to do that now. As we see, the Namibian record holder, it hasn't been the best competition for Lionel Coetzee so far this evening. 7:62 his best. He's in 7th place as we look at Pribilko's second attempt for him at 2:26, and he just balled himself into a cat's tumble there as he bailed out of that jump. No joy for Mateusz Pribilko on his second attempt at 2:26, but he has one more chance to join his compatriot at 2:29, which will be the next height after 2:26. Wouldn't that be something? As we go back to the men's long jump. The way in the men's long jump is still being led by Simon Batz, but Luca Herden has jumped into contention in second place. 7:94 for her. Brilliant bit of progress by him. And then Marcus Rehm is now in third. So it's 3 Germans all of a sudden leading the way. Simon Batz, Luca Herden and Marcus Rehm. 8:01, 7:94 and 7:93. As we saw that effort there from Herden. Brilliantly executed by him. Meanwhile, in the women's pole vault, still nobody clear quite yet at 4:45, with 2 failures for Nicola Pushkova and Elise de Jong, and meanwhile a second attempt upcoming for Friedlinde Petershoffen. And it looks like the temporary track that has been laid in Kennedy Platz. This is Friedlinde Petershoffen, her second attempt. No joy there for her at 4:45. So all 3 athletes remaining have 2 failures now at 4:45 in the women's pole vault. And leading the way is Friedlinde Petershoffen ahead of Nicola Pushkova and Elise de Jong, based on countback, based on the overall number of failures. So if none of them go clear, Petershoffen will take the victory ahead of Pushkova and Elise de Jong, but all 3 athletes, I'm sure, will have high hopes on their third and final attempt of getting over. As we look back to the men's long jump and Sam Kigali of Great Britain, let's see what he can produce. He has opened his competition now. 7:72 opened, then 7:89. He's down in 5th. Let's see if he can get this right. That looks a foul, I think. And indeed, the red panel of doom flashes up alongside the pit for Sam Kigali. He remains down in 5th, but certainly very much in the mix. Despite being 4 places off the lead, he's only 12 centimetres off it. So it's crunch time in the men's high jump, and Mateusz Pribilko, third and final attempt for the German, a former world indoor medalist, at 2:26. Not to be, unfortunately, on the evening for Pribilko, but it's been a very, very good early season competition for the German. 2:23, I think, as you can see by his expression, he will walk away very, very happy with that. He's in a great place, and he will be looking for bigger and better things in the weeks and months ahead. And of course, crucially, he's healthy. 33 years old now is Pribilko. Of course, has Polish heritage. Both of his brothers were professional footballers. I think one of them played for Poland at some international stage. But he was born and raised, of course, in Germany, and opted to represent Germany, which he's done with such pride, Prabilko, on the international stage. In that world final all the way back in 2017 and won that world indoor bronze medal in 2018. As we see results of the men's high jump, and Tobias Potier takes victory with 2:26, that brilliant first time clearance. In second place, Leas Prabilko, 2:23, first time clearance as well. And then in third, Antonios Merlos of Greece, 2:19. He edges Vadim Kravchuk to third place on countback. Eric Portillo there, honourable mention for him, and Daniel Kossen as well, also cleared 2:19 like Merlos and Kravchuk, but just demoted to 5th based on countback. So the bar is due to go in the high jump to 2:29. Let's see if Tobias Potier fancies it in front of this brilliant crowd in Essen. But back to the women's pole vault, and it is truly crunch time for the young Dutch star. Let's see if she can get it. So no joy there for Elise de Jong. Third and final attempt is unsuccessful, unfortunately, for the 19-year-old, but a bright start to her outdoor season it has been. She was 9th at the World Under-20 Championships last year in Lima, 2nd at the Dutch Championships outdoors last year. The Rotterdam native wasn't quite to be on that attempt. She also does plenty multi-events. A multi-talented young athlete, but as I mentioned, that Dutch Under-20 record earlier this year, 4:50, a bright summer and indeed a future ahead as we look back to the long jump. As it was, Simon Batz, 8:01 leading the way, as we see a foul there. So, Friedlinde Petterhoffen, third and final attempt at 4:45. Can she extend her lead and really put this competition beyond her rivals? If she could go over, it would all but put the victory beyond everyone else, because, no, in fact, she has already guaranteed herself the victory. Apologies. Ahead of Nicola Pushlova and Elise de Jong, based on countback, but she would love to put a shine on this competition. If she could go clear at 4:45. So it's not a successful third attempt, unfortunately, for Friedlinde Pettershoffen, but she does take victory with a clearance of 4:35. She wins on countback from Nicola Pushlova and Elise de Jong. Now the bar has been set to 2:30 by Tobias Potier. It's going to be a big season's best. He's already got that already this evening, but he is aiming higher. He will have his eyes on a prize at the World Championships in Tokyo later this summer. But this would be huge if Tobias Potier can get over 2:30 this early in the season in May. So First attempt of a possible 3 for Tobias Potier. He's getting plenty of support from the home crowd. And Tobias Potier, buoyed by the crowd in Essen, in Kennedyplatz. Oh, he just backs out of that. I hope that is not an injury. He looks like he just maybe rolled his ankle or something there as he set off for that first attempt. Now, will he pull the plug, or is it just a bad step he took? No, he looks to be holding his calf or his shin, perhaps. I'd be very surprised if I saw Tobias Potier take an attempt at 2:30. This part of the season, you really just do not want to take many chances, as we see Miss Rame there in the long jump. So back on the long jump runway, well into the 5th round here. And it is Chenot Lionel Cozzi, who is only down in position at the moment. Great speed on the runway there. It looks to be in that kind of 780 range or so. Best is 780. It was set in Gaborone back in April. As you see, absolutely foot perfect on the board for Cozzi. What has he produced? 774. So it is an improvement, but it only moves him up to 7th place. And Cozzi will have been hopeful, and I would think confident of getting a bit better than that this evening. But he has one round with which to do that. So, confirmation of that men's high jump result. Tobias Potier, 2:26, takes victory ahead of his compatriot Mateusz Przybyłko. And then Antonios Merlos of Greece takes 3rd with 2:19. And I can tell you Marcus Rame has taken the lead indeed in that men's long jump. 8:12. Simon Batz still in 2nd. He passed his 4th attempt with 8:01, and Gerson Balde back in 3rd with that 7:97 in the 4th round. Simon, then 5th round attempt for him. That is a very good attempt. Let's see if he gets, it's going to be measured. Simon Plitzko, what has he produced here in the 5th round? Previous best was the 778. That does look very close to his previous best. He was 770 before this competition. That is a PB of 778 and then 5. And look at that, a brilliantly consistent series as well, Berman. He was 5th at the World Under-20s last year in Lima, so perhaps it's no surprise that he's taken steps forward. As we see Sam Kigali ready for his 5th round effort. Very good speed on the runway. And yeah, that just went wrong there. I think as soon as he put his foot, he won. He stays in 5th position on 789 is the best currently for Kigali. So they did go and measure it, even though he probably would prefer that wasn't beside his name, a 5 meter jump, but nonetheless he'll focus more on the 789 in the second round as we see Gerson Balde. What can the Portuguese man produce? And he doesn't need very much. And in front of him, the two Germans, Marcus Rehm and Simon Batz. 797, his best so far for Balde. Look good on the board again. That looks a big one. That really does look a big Balde. He could have jumped to the lead there. He's excited as he runs back to check how big that jump is. Gerson Balde looks to have unleashed one that could put him firmly in command here. 8:12 is the mark by Marcus Rehm. He is trying to chase. And it's 80 for Balde. What a jump by the Portuguese star. A huge effort. Gerson Balde has just smashed his personal best. 8:10 was his personal best from last summer. That was done in Rome in June last year. And in virtually still conditions, Gerson Balde, the 25-year-old Portuguese athlete, has obliterated his personal their Überflieger and looks to have one hand on victory. But can this man, Simon Batz, he's down in third place with 8:01 at the moment. Can he do something about it? That's a big one too. That looks very close to 8 meters. It might be in the kind of 8:10 range, 8:05 I would suspect. But he doesn't look to love it that much.
Aber wir haben ja auch noch den sechsten, den letzten Durchgang. Also es bleibt spannend. 7,99 für Simon Batz. So, jetzt
7.99 then for Simon Batz. He stays in third position.
Leon Schäfer lässt aus.
No improvement for him. And we are onwards and upwards to the sixth and final round. The state of play up front at the moment, it is Gerson Balde of Portugal, 8:20. He leads the way. Marcus Rehm of Germany in second with 8:12. And then the third man on the evening, who is over 8 meters in a brilliant competition so far, is Simon Batz of Germany. As we see Daniel Wagner of Denmark, he's down in 13th position at the moment with a best of 7:04. Let's see if he can surpass the 7 meter barrier once again on his sixth and final attempt. Not to be there. It looks to be more in the 680, 690 range, but nonetheless a good competition by Daniel Wagner. He has a best of 7:39. As I mentioned earlier, his 5 Paralympic medals in total. 2 from Paris last year in the long jump and the 100 meters. And he also has silver and bronze from the same 2 events at the Rio Paralympics. And then all the way back in 2012. He's 31 now. He was a younger man back then, but he won bronze in the long jump at the London 2012 Paralympics. And he's still producing 7+ meter jumps. He's a snowboarder in his spare time as well as Wagner. But from one Paralympic icon to another, it is Marcus Rehm on the runway for his 6th and final attempt. What can the German star produce here? And I think that is indeed a valid mark. I don't think, however, it's going to be an improvement on the 8:12 he produced in that 5th round. Yeah, just coming down in around the kind of 780, 790 mark there for Marcus Rehm. It is no improvement for the German star. 36 years old now, but still competing so well. 8:12, his best on the night. Let's see what he's finished out his competition with. As we see Yanni Samson of Belgium down in 9th position at the moment with 7:57. And I can tell you that was 7:75 for Marcus Rehm. And he, of course, stays in 2nd place. So it may be down to the likes of Simon Batz to be the sole remaining challenger to Gerson Balde. I'd be surprised if anyone can catch. It does look bigger, but it is, of course, a foul. Head and hands moment there for the Belgian. And he brings his competition to a close. He will finish down in place. So Julian Holešek of Germany, 7:58, his best so far, has him down in 8th place. And that looks pretty similar to that. It's in the mid 7 meter range. He does get it measured. It is a valid attempt. Perfect on the board there from Holešek. Really impressive on the board in his 6th and final round effort. 7:40 it is, so no improvement. It was close for Holešek, but it's not quite there. He finished down in 8th place. As we see Chenault Lionel Kotsi, the Namibian record holder, who just 2 years ago jumped that Namibian record at altitude in Windhoek of 8:27. However, he's jumped 7:80 already this year, and as such, he'll be disappointed not to be beyond that this evening. He's 7:74. He's down in 7th position. Can he eke out a few more centimeters here in this final round? Looks like quite a similar effort again. Gets the green flag. It will be, I think it's probably not an improvement on his 7:74 for Kotsi. So no improvement there for Kotsi. Final round. See if Luca Herden, who is currently in 4th position with that 790 effort. Okay. So 794 is the mark he's trying to pass and challenge 8 meters. Don't think that's going to be an improvement in the 6th round, unfortunately. Luca Herden looks like he finished 4th place, just off the podium at the top of Überflieger. Couple fouls, and overall it was a good series for the German, who represents the LG Brillux Munster club. So no improvement for him. And now it is over to Simon Plitzko, who is down in 6th position with that 778 in the 3rd round. And you can see the wind is really starting to blow in Essen. They were predicting a storm blowing in. They were hoping it would hold off until this competition was completed. Great height there from Plitzko, but I think that might be a foul. Indeed, I don't see anyone coming in to measure it, so no joy on his 6th and final attempt for Simon Plitzko of TSG Bergedorf. Spring heat. There you can see trick ability down the runway. Great elevation. It was a very, very good jump. But as you see, 3 or 4 centimeters maybe over the board, but certainly looks like he otherwise, if he could have hit that board correctly, would have improved upon that 778 he jumped in round 3. But let's see if the Briton can do so. 789 Sam Kigali had in the 2nd round. 6th and final effort here as he trundles down the runway. Hits the board well. It's a good effort, but I don't think it's going to be an improvement. And I think as he looked back at where it was, I think he knew that immediately himself. Sam Kigali It is a valid effort again. 5 out of 6 valid jumps this evening. But it is not going to be an improvement on the 789 he jumped in the second round. So he's going to finish, I think down in 5th position. Sam Kigali. But nonetheless, a good night's work for the Woodford Green athlete, the 27-year-old. He did jump 791 earlier on this month, just a few weeks ago in Liguri. Knocking on the door of that again. But this man very much leads the way. Gerson Balde, it's been a breakthrough night for him, but it's been a breakthrough season for him overall. He was 8th at the World Indoor Championships, and was 4th at the European Indoors in Apeldoorn. And he smashed his personal best this evening. What can he do in round 6? That's another big jump by the Portuguese star. But it is a foul by the looks of things. And you can see dejection on his face there. I would say he would love to measure that jump. Because I don't think that's a foul by very much. And it was a big jump. It was in around that 820 mark again. And look at that. A centimetre or two in it for Gerson Balde. That is a quite annoying finish to a brilliant competition and what looks to be an almost certain victory for Gerson Balde. There is only one man who can stop him, and this is him, Simon Batz of Germany. The early leader went out to 8:01 in that second round. He held that for a few rounds until Marcus Raymond in 8:12. And then along came Gerson Balde with 8:20. What can Simon Batz produce in the last jump of the night? It's a big one. But I think it may be a foul. Indeed it is. There's no one coming in to measure that. So, not so delightful finish for Simon Batzev. But that was a big jump. Over 8 meters on the night. I'm sure the German 22-year-old will be very happy with that. Very close to what he jumped indoors this year, 8:05. And the man who finished 4th in the World Indoor Championships last year, Simon Batz, will take a 3rd place finish at the Tage der Überflieger. He's not the best German on the night though. That goes to Marcus Rehm, the parasport athlete, who jumped 8:12 for 2nd place. While the winner, the star of the show, and you would have to say the performance of the night overall on day 1 of Tage der Überflieger, it is that man in red, Gerson Balde of Portugal. 8:20 he jumped to take victory in the men's long jump. There is confirmation of the top 8 in that men's long jump, the last of 4 elite competitions on day 1 of Tage der Überflieger. Gerson Balde with that huge breakthrough, 10 centimeters onto his personal best. 8:20. Brilliant stuff by the Portuguese 25-year-old. And then it is a few Germans clustering in behind. Marcus Rehm with 8:12, Simon Batz with 8:01, and Luca Herden with 7:94. And then just behind him in 5th, Sam Kigali of Britain with 7:89. we see all smiles there with the women's long jump ceremonies ongoing, and Laura Raquel Muller. What a return to competition it was for the young German. After so long on the sidelines, lots of rehab had to be done, I'm sure. Herself back, she makes a winning return to the long jump runway, 6:44 on the evening to take victory. So the presentation after that brilliant men's high jump competition. Antonios Merlos of Greece. Third place there with 2:19, his best clearance. And then also sharing the spoils in third place, Vadim Kravchuk. Inseparable, the two of them, on countback. So they will share that third place prize money, I'm sure, with the fourth place prize money. The runner-up on the night. And a brilliant return to form for Mateusz Przybyłko, the senior statesman of the men's high jump field this evening. And he's jumping brilliantly. 2:23, and he gave 2:26 a good rattle as well. But no doubt about the star on the night for the hosts. It was indeed Tobias Potje. 2:26, a brilliant clearance by him. And who knows, the way he jumped that 2:26, if he didn't just tweak something on the run-up, we could have well have seen a 2:30 clearance as well. But let's hope that was nothing serious. He sensibly chose to avoid jumping as he was just rubbing his calf at that point. But a brilliant win on the night by Tobias Potje, rising to the occasion at Tage der Überflieger. Okay, just a few more presentations ongoing, but as you can see, the crowd are filtering out of Kennedyplatz in the center of Essen, the city that has been such a memorable host yet again to the now two-day festival of field events, festival of jumping at the Tage der Überflieger. It's been a brilliant first evening with some memorable performances, but there's lots more to come tomorrow afternoon. The triple jump women will be getting underway for the elite program at 1:45 German time, that's Central European time. Then there'll be 3 other events to follow. The pole vault men will be on at 2:40 p.m. The women's high jumpers will be at 2:50 p.m. And then rounding out the action tomorrow afternoon will be the men's triple jumpers at 3:40 p.m. CET. But for now, I'll sign off. It's been a pleasure having you this evening, and please join us again tomorrow afternoon at around 1:45 p.m. for day 2 of Tage der Überflieger.